promo for the Marlies today. Get it in by 5, and you can win tickets to see the game tomorrow afternoon, which starts at 3 o'clock.
Couldn't we do something really incredible and do something as a group right here, right now?
I was just thinking, it's funny you should mention that.
We could all go to the Marlies game.
I think it would be pretty awkward to have zero to podcasting in the middle of the game. But, sorry, I have to. This should have lapel mics. I wonder if I can tape this to my shirt. So we're going to talk about recording your podcast now. And we're going to show you some technology. Bob already showed you the M-Audio microtrack. There's a few other interesting devices here. Do you want to show the M-Audio again? And we'll talk really quickly about some. There's also recording into your computer, but we'll show really quickly some of the portable recording gear. So, and we'll talk a bit about the advantages and disadvantages of each, and we'll go over those really. Well, I guess we have 45 minutes to talk about that, and then we record. Or do we record as part of this? No, I think we record now. So, we'll go over the features of these devices really quickly, and then we'll actually get into recording. But we'll actually use these devices to do some recording. So.
What?
Microtrack.
Okay, so this is the M-Audio microtrack. M-Audio is if you're a musician, you know them as MIDI Man. That's what they used to be called. This is the microtrack, I guess 1 now by default, because they've come out with a 2, which is of a different color and has some different features.
Now in black.
Now in black. This is a great little recorder, and it really was one of the first ones that was out there. There was the Edinburgh that came around the same time as well, but just nice because it records on compact flash like a lot of cameras do. I think actually all these are solid-state recorders now. They're all either SD cards or compact flash. It's a nice box. A couple of knocks it has against it is the battery is not user replaceable. It's rechargeable, so it recharges off the USB or off a wall jack or something, but as rechargeable batteries tend to do after a while, this thing probably won't hold a charge. It's still doing well. It's 2 years in for me now, and it's still doing okay. The sound quality is great. I'm really happy with this. We were talking earlier, and I could put this in the middle of the room, and it'll pick up the whole room. Or I can use it in an interview setting. You can also plug real microphones like this into it. It's a great box, but it's about $400, which, considering everything it does, it's not bad. What's come out more recently are things like the Zoom H2 and H4. Mark is holding an H2, so the price is right. And the bidding starts.
I'll show you, one of the great features of the H2 is that it fits in your pocket and you can take it anywhere. There's very few recorders that actually do that. The microtrack without the microphones plugged in, with them plugged in, works, but you can snap it off. This is one of the very few portable recorders that actually you can tuck away like that and shove in your pocket and take it anywhere. It has 4 microphone capsules inside of it, which is basically 4 microphones, which allows you to record nearly 360-degree sound. So you can stick it in the middle of a room. You can turn on the front mics and the back mics and record basically the entire room, anything that's going on around. A couple of the nice features is you can actually mix various microphone combinations together to 2-channel stereo or to 4-channel surround sound. So if you want to record with all 4 mics, you can record to 4 channels, and then when you bring it into your audio editing software, you can mix each individual element in your own way, which is kind of handy. It has a built-in limiter, which the microtrack, that's the biggest fault of the microtrack, is that it doesn't have a built-in limiter.
Everybody know what a limiter is?
No.
Okay.
So a limiter is basically, it's a ceiling on how loud the sound can get. In the old days of audio tape, if your audio signal was too hot, too saturated, you'd get distortion. It would start sounding warm, and then eventually it would just be a muddle of noise. Anybody remember that from audio tape days? No? Come on, Mark, back me up here. Okay, good.
So the whole idea is if you record, no matter what you're using, if you record too loud, if your incoming volume is too loud for the machine to handle, it's going to sound like crap.
So
that's baseline right there. Limiting is like a buffer or like a sponge that sits between the microphone and the recorder and absorbs anything that's way too loud and makes it soft enough for the recorder to record it properly without it sounding like garbage. That's really what limiting does. It limits what's coming into the recorder. And that's,
In spoken word, when you're dealing with different voices, and in music settings especially, you want to have a limiter. If you're going out recording stuff in the field, having a limiter is, I would say, it's essential. And then I just want to come back to the distortion. The days of audio tape, it would sound very distorted. In the days of digital, the way you can tell if something is distorted is you'll get all sorts of digital like clicking and crackling and weird things that are actually it's spiky sounds in your ears, as opposed to the audio tape days, which would be you get this warm distortion, which would just kind of be noise.
Do you have a sample of that?
We can create a sample of that today.
If you want, if you really want to listen to that audio, we just recently did an example of the Creepy Sleepy Show, and what was strange is we had 4 people all calling in on Skype at once, and we had a couple of different really bad audio things, one of which was Cece's voice was a little bit loud, so you could hear that kind of clipping and crackling stuff at the top end when he was talking right into his microphone. I was recording it digitally from Pennsylvania through my mixer. Dan was in New York, and Cece and Chris Penn were in Boston, and Chris Penn actually had problems on Skype too, so it ended up sounding like a transformer. So if you really want to hear some crappy audio, that's the episode is right there.
Just make sure.
Is it here?
It's probably down a little bit. It's let's see, social media and politics. That's it. Probably want to skip to about 2 minutes in and do the crappy audio.
Your friends were listening to that. Can you guys help me define social media?
That internet stuff. Yeah. Well, so you're marketing it currently. You want to start out?
Yeah,
I guess great throw to my recorder. I mean,
Do you hear the distortion when he's speaking right there? That's clipping. Okay, that's what they call. And that's if there had been limiting on that. Great example. If there had been limiting on that, it wouldn't have sounded like that. It wouldn't have had that rough edge, that sound. That
Yeah, it was like a buzzing sound.
yeah. So that's a good example of where limiting would have helped.
Yes.
Oh, I was just wondering, what for the H2, what price range is that?
The H2 is about, I think it's like $230. Yeah. So it's also one of the cheapest recorders. In fact, it's probably going to put pressure on other digital recorder makers to bring their prices down. The other nice thing about it is it takes 2 AA batteries. So if you're like me, you have 2 sets of rechargeables and you have 1 set charging while the other set's in use. And you don't run into the problem that you'll run into with your microtrack.
And SD cards.
Oh yeah, it also
SD cards, yeah. The audio runs on compact flash, and that runs on SD cards.
So here's your SD card.
One of the key things about the distortion and clipping is just when you think about it, if a lot of people are listening to a podcast on an MP3 player, that sounds like crap in your ears, enough that most probably somebody will stop it.
Yeah.
And might very well not subscribe or unsubscribe.
That's a great point.
It has that much of an effect.
Yeah, because it's a great point because you're that close. We're saying you're right in somebody's head, and you're in there, and you decide to start a vacuum cleaner. You're not going to make fans that way. Yeah, it's a great point. This is the H2's bigger brother, I guess, the H4. A lot of the same features. It's only got 2 microphones built in, but it'll run those condenser mics that needed special power to run and everything. It'll actually run those. So again, you don't need a mixer or whatever. You just plug the microphone straight into this guy, and it runs on the AA's and has SD as well. Yeah.
The H4 is what I use with the condenser mic, and I used to use a mixer and a condenser mic hooked up into my computer, but no matter what I did, it picked up the computer fan. So even with a door between me and the computer, it was still picking it up. So that's why I use the H4. It's the cleanest sound that I can find.
Yeah, that's a good point. No moving parts in any of these, so you don't get any machine noise.
So what do you like better? Do you like the H4 or the audio? Because when we record, you won't use the H4, you will use the audio.
And that's just because of the setup I have. You know, like every machine has its own quirks, and because I'm recording from our mixer and things like that, I'm just used to using the audio. I'm used to the meters. I'm not used to the meters on this one. As, you know, if I started, I would have bought this one first. If this one would have existed when I bought my audio, this is what I would have bought. And I would have got used to it. But now you get to know a pair of gloves or a pair of shoes, and you go with what you know.
What did you actually start with?
I actually started with mini disc. I started with mini disc recording analog to mini disc. So in real time, I would record to a mini disc recorder, and then play that into my computer. So it would take 45 minutes to record the show, 45 minutes to play it into the computer to record it, and then do the editing. And that was...
And you carried around like a 40-pound battery pack.
Yeah, it ran on 16 car batteries. And, yeah, that was. But you know what? You start with what you have, right? There's some people who actually start with cassettes, and everybody can't even say that anymore. But a lot of people still have cassette recorders, and there's lots of people who record, field interviews on cassette, and then they transfer it to the computer later. I mean, there's really no wrong way to do it.
So what we're going to do is while the conversation continues, I'm going to walk around. I'm actually going to record some people for our recording session.
Okay. You're going to record them on the H... Oh, doesn't matter.
I'll put them on. So I'm actually going to use another... I set up the H2 actually in the middle of the room right now with 4-channel mixing to 2, just so people can hear what kind of audio can come out of it. I better make sure that it's on the decent.
And now I'd like to do a song from my first album.
And I'm actually, this is my main recorder. When I first started, I got this. This is the Adderall R1. It's no longer made. I love this thing. This thing is excellent. With the exception of, and like the H2, it uses the mini plugs, these tiny little 1/8" plugs, which in the audio world is kind of not good. But considering you're putting it as an MP3 anyways, it's not so bad. But this thing is excellent. It runs on 2 AA batteries, has a built-in limiter, has a whole bunch of great features. But for the price, it was a little bit more expensive than the microtrack when it came out. But the audio converters, the analog to digital converters, are really nice, and you get a really nice sound in those, despite the fact that it's coming from 1/8".
What was that called again?
The Adderall R1. You can probably only find them on eBay now.
So we don't get too caught up in the technology. What I'd like you to remember about the technology is that you can start with a $30 iRiver, or you can go up to $800 Adderall. The fact is that, and we're going to talk about recording the show. What do you need if you're going to record? You need a show. So I'd like us to talk about that a bit, and we're going to go around and record some audio, because we're going to put a podcast together. We're going to record the audio now together. And then in our next session, where we're looking at editing and mixing and things like that, we'll take that audio and we'll make a show out of it. So, yes?
Sorry, just a quick question. If you're doing face-to-face interviews, which unit would be the best one?
Face-to-face interviews, it depends on how much time you want to spend editing.
Be back in a few minutes and get some audio.
And he was never seen or heard from again. If I'm doing a face-to-face interview and it's just sitting at a table having a conversation, I'll put this between us, or anyone will do it fine. But the thing is that I'm recording both voices into the same channels. That works out well if you're in a room where if the people speak at the same level. If you have somebody who's a loud talker and somebody who's a soft talker, that's great. Whatever. You can do a step up. You can put little lapel mics I have that I carry around. Those are tiny little lapel mics, and then you clip one to each person. And you still go into one of that, and then record one on the left channel and the other person on the right channel. And then afterwards, you can go and fix it. So the soft talker, you can bring them up, and the loud talker, you can bring them down. So it all depends on how much work you want to do, and how much of your, at some point you can make great sounding audio of stuff that's not interesting to hear, right? So you want to get caught up in the content first, and make sure that's engaging, and then you move on. Like I wouldn't not do an interview because I don't have 2 separate mics. I'm speaking. What, Elvis? Oh, here, Elvis, tell me how it's like to be dead. I would want to. You don't want to get caught up too much in that. Use what you have. You're going to start with a machine. The Chancellor has built-in microphones. So you start with that, you get used to that stuff, and maybe you move up from there. Whitney.
One of the client podcasts I do is I do something for the OBGYN department, and we do sort of a roundtable discussion with doctors about all sorts of exciting things like postpartum hemorrhage. But I use the H2. What's great about that is because it's got different mic capsules, I can make sure that I'm getting enough sound from the other people that it's coming in at a fairly consistent rate. And we've worked out, since we're doing this fairly frequently now, when I do this, it means just come a little closer because I can monitor what the levels are. But that's been really handy because then I can essentially, with one thing in the middle of the table, sort of mic everybody up at a relatively equal level, and it makes the editing a whole lot easier. What's also nice is if you've got something you can just put on the table and whatever, people, particularly if you're interviewing somebody who doesn't do interviews all the time, they don't get mic fright, because sometimes if you put a microphone in somebody's face, they sit there and go.
I've shut up some great people over the years just by doing this.
it's on the record, but if you're trying to have something that's a conversation, something that's innocuous, like these digital recorders in the middle, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, and the barrier to entry, I mean, like the price point is really low on it, so that's nice. It's nice that you can do that. To do that, a few years ago, you were looking at $1,000.
It's got better quality than my R9, which I spent $400.
Yeah. So the R9 is
Another Adderall.
another Adderall. I don't think anybody's got. Anybody have an R9? It looks kind of like that. It's that size. Everything pretty much is the same size when it comes to those. Does that answer your question? Kind of. Help me answer your question. So
we're marketing agency.
Right.
So we're sort of both things, podcasts for our clients.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll be recording, and I'll hand it off to someone else to edit it. So if I'm in a room like this and I'm talking to somebody, I'm concerned about the ambient noise.
Right.
I'm trying to clean that out while I'm actually talking to somebody. Is that possible?
yeah, well, what you want if you're doing something like that, then you would want a mic like this, which is not picking up as much as the ambient. And you really like when you do this, or you get one of those shotguns, which are the really long microphones, and you just hold it down here and you go back and forth. So you're pointing back and forth. Or yeah. The thing is, if the person, like what you said, if the person's used to talking in front of a microphone, it's not going to be a problem. So you want to try to keep the microphone out of the way. So maybe more ambient noise to get a more real interview or a more real piece of audio. Ambient noise you can't really take out once it's there. So not without it sounding very artificial. So ideally, you say, hey, like I've done that at conferences before, like a Podcamp Boston, which there's people like at beach balls, whatever. Say, hey, you want to step in the hallway over here? We'll talk a bit. And people are usually so thrilled just to be asked questions and people wanting their opinion. They'll step into a quiet room for it. So.
Yeah, I just looked at the live stream of this podcast, and I could hear you really well.
Okay.
Anytime somebody asks a question, probably just like now, you can't hear them.
Okay.
If you repeat the question or you have a mic to them, because
that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
They're just terrible, except for the person who's speaking. But this kind of ambiance doesn't work.
You're right. Like I asked that for when I'm helping other presenters. I asked them to repeat the question, and I don't do it. But thanks for reminding me. So the question was, Bob, can you at least repeat that question that people are asking because we can't hear them, you bastard?
Another solution could be that you can have that mic be standalone somewhere, and we all go up and ask the question.
Yeah, but then the point was that we could have the mic on a mic stand and people come up, and then that creates the church communion mentality. So people will blurt something out a lot easier than they will stand up and actively walk over to the microphone.
I tried to listen to a really good presentation, a guy from MIT who had the One Laptop Per Child program in Japan recently, and it was so irritating, exactly this sort of situation where people ask very valuable questions, you hear this pause, then he just goes on, and it's so irritating you stop listening to it.
Can I summarize that by saying it's irritating if you don't hear the question but you hear the answer? Okay. Okay, so where were we? We talked about recording. We're talking about recording Sean Nelson. Yes.
I have a question about mics. So we talked about a condenser mic. So the difference is, I guess I'm looking at a diagram on the H2 website, and so a boom mic is more directed. It's a more focused. It just picks up sound waves that are directly in front of you. In terms of, you're answering a question about ambient noise.
Boom mic?
Yeah, boom mic.
So you're asking about, okay, what?
So like a boom mic would be more targeted. So if I wanted to cancel out ambient noise, if I were using a boom mic and pointed at you, then I'm only getting sound waves coming directly towards me.
Yeah, the question is boom mics are very targeted. There could be a conversation going over there in the corner, and I'm here with a boom mic and I won't hear it. And if I aim it right at them, I'll hear the conversation. So they're very, same like it. Boom or shotgun, or some of them have a parabolic dish around them, so you can actually get even further. It's very pointed, and there's no width to it at all. So you can actually look over, you can hear over people to something else going on with those kind of microphones. You hear what he said? He was talking about asking about boom microphones. What are you saying?
Oh, I just said.
You said something, and you said yeah.
Oh, no, you see those parabolic shotgun mics at football games.
Right, yeah.
Yes, you see them at football games.
It's going out.
Yeah, I'm also self-conscious.
And the mic that you have is a condenser.
This, I have a mic that looks like this. Well, one of my mics is something like this. It's a condenser kind of mic. You can tell because they usually need shotguns because just this will blow your head off on a condenser mic because they're very sensitive. So they're suspended by springs or rubber bands, or just to be isolated from any walking on the floor or that kind of thing. Whereas this kind of mic needs more sound energy to make it work. So you can handle it and it's not a big a deal. But a mic like that you can't handle as you're actively using it.
And why do you put the foam over the mic?
The foam is to deflect air. When you talk, you generate air. What the foam is for over a mic, a puffball, what they call them. Actually, this one's got one a bit, it's inside the grill. But if I go like this, you really hear that, the implosion, the rush of air hitting the microphone capsule. What that foam ball does is it diffuses it so that you don't get as much noise. If you're recording in a windy situation, all you're going to hear is the wind over the top of the mic. You put this on, and it deflects the wind away from the microphone capsule, and it keeps it clean audio.
And pop filters too.
And pop filters too, yeah.
I'm thinking about doing a wood turning podcast, but actually having a microphone on me while I'm actually turning. Is that even possible? I mean, even if I shut my lathe down just to say, okay, here's what I'm doing at this point or whatever, is that possible? Can I have something on my, like over my head, so I'm not trying to pick up a microphone and do.
So the question is, if he's doing a woodworking podcast and he has a lathe going and can use a headset mic, my answer would be yes. But the thing is, I guess lathes are pretty loud, right?
No, actually, they're probably the quietest.
Oh, okay.
They're really not real loud, but they're not.
But when you're actually carving into the wood, is it loud?
It would be loud.
Okay, so what you might want to do for your listener, because your listener probably has a good idea of what a lathe sounds like. So what you might want to do is record that way, and you're not going to talk while the machine is going, probably.
Right.
Is you probably want to, in post-production, bring down the sound of the lathe, so it's not just blah, 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 because that'll get old pretty quick.
You can do that with a singular mic.
Sure.
Okay.
Because at that point, it's not the sound of the lathe you're trying to get, it's the sound of you explaining what you're doing, right? So if you do that, and in post-production, and if you're cognizant of when you're recording, that you don't talk over the machine, it's like, okay, now I'm going to do this kind of click. And then, like they do with This Old House, right? They said, well, we're going to build a wall here. They don't show you the whole wall. You see three guys come up, and then the screen goes blurry for a second, and all of a sudden there's a wall.
Right.
That's what you need to do, but from an audio point of view, because you keep the sound of the lathe for like maybe 3 or 4 seconds the first time, and then the 7th and 8th, 14th times you have it just for like a blip, just so they know that you've turned on the machine. The brain registers that, and then you can move on.
But in multi-track, like you could record that sound bit and then just gain it down and then have a separate track over top of it, whatever it is that you want to say or whatever it is that you're explaining.
Yes, absolutely. But then it wouldn't be, the point was that multi-track, you can have one track which is the machine, and then the other track is what you're saying. But if you're doing it in real time, then chances are the microphone that's here, and if the machine is this close by, it's going to pick up that machine, no matter how directional it is. So I agree with you. If you were trying to create the scene of somebody working in a lathe, you could have a sound effect of a track of somebody, of a machine working, and then the guy talking over it. But if you're doing it in real time, I worry about the separation. You get so much leakage that it might not be able to. You may not. It's worth a shot. Depends how many cables you want around. The cool thing about podcasting, and I really don't want to get too caught up in it, is that you can't do it wrong. Okay, there is no right or wrong way. Does it sound okay? You did it right. That's it. That's really, if you walk away with one thing, you're not going to sound like the CBC. You're not going to sound like PBS. You're not going to sound like whatever. You're going to sound like you. And when you're doing your first show, you're going to sound like you, not knowing it yet. But on your 10th show, you're going to sound a lot better. And that goes for anything, right? I mean, Scarborough did what? Is he here? He did like 8 shows that he never released. He recorded them himself and put them on a CD. But he mastered his technique that way, and then he started publishing the shows.
We've all produced shows we have not put out. There's those dark horses that people will never hear.
Yeah. So we're talking about recording a show. You got some audio?
I got some audio from out in the hallway. Mandy gave me a tour of their machine room, and I got some people in the room while you were talking. I used 2 techniques for recording the quick on-the-spot interviews. I used my R1 with an external microphone, and then just as a way of comparing what a cardioid mic can do. I also recorded a couple of on-the-spot interviews using this thing, just so you can hear some of the differences in how microphones pick up sound. And this is the H2. And the other thing I did is I had this sitting on the desk for a few minutes, I think it was actually 13, recording the room. So you can hear what kind of things this microphone can pick up, just as a way of comparing.
Okay, so it's a workshop. Let's not get too hung up on the technology. Everybody understand that we record using microphones to a recorder. We're good with that?
Or your recorder.
Do you realize that the recorder can be your PC or your Mac, or however you want to call that piece of hardware? It doesn't matter. Find a way to record and start recording. So,
well, and you could use a great example. I mean, you can't get any more. Is Scarborough Dude's iRiver. You can get anything that can record. There's the Olympus dictaphones. I recommend you get something that can record in WAV or MP3. Recommend getting something that can record in WAV or MP3 because those are the two file. Oh, look at that. What is this? This is an Olympus dictaphone. Does this do MP3?
I've got the manual right here.
Holly has it, I remember.
I think it does.
Thanks, I'll take that. So that's the iRiver, and it fits in your pocket too. You don't want to go with something that records into a proprietary file format, unless you can convert it to MP3, because it adds another step in how you import your audio and use your audio. So this is the iRiver. Again, you might be able to find something like this on iRiver. And you're using the pencil mic also so yeah, the iRiver, by the way, has an amazing internal mic. In fact, my early episodes I recorded, so you can't see it, it's like a pinhole. In my early episodes of Electric Sky, I used to record using the internal mic. I actually have one of these pencil mics at home, and I recorded a few episodes on that, or using it. And I found it was a bit too omnidirectional. It's a great mic. It has really good sound spectrum. It really picks up the frequencies nicely. But then I picked up this Audio Technica, what is it, the ATM 41HE, whatever. It's just it's like the SM57, the SM58 kind of thing, which is a little bit more omnidirectional, which means that you have to. Oh, we'll get to it. Which means that your microphone has to be a little bit closer to the sound source in order to get a good signal.
I think it's worth mentioning Ted Reekin and Island Podcasting too, because he records using the iRiver. And he does an awful lot of stuff, like with smoking fish or changing down a horn on his smart, or he does an awful lot of stuff that has ambient sound as well. And
actually, if you take this, I'll show what he uses. Hold on, that's yours.
He uses iRiver with the
binaural.
Binaural, thank you.
Yeah, I have them right here. I have the same mics that Ted Reekin uses. Would you have them too? Well, I'll put mine in my ears. I don't want to put yours in my ears. These are amazing, by the way. You do have to have power. What do they call it? Plug-in power on your audio recorder.
Right here, what I have mine attached to is it's an $80 piece right here that makes it able to plug into the Zoom H4.
Can you say that again?
I'm sorry. This on the top here costs about $70, and I can plug them right into the Zoom H4, and I get really incredible sound. And these cost about $100, and then $70 for the adapter, because you need phantom power.
Right. Cool.
So when you're walking down the street, they're not the easiest things to get in when you have the windscreens on. When you're walking down the street, people think you're listening to music. How cool is that? Walk into a political party meeting with these on.
Yeah, Ted did a podcast just before Christmas where he went to Walmart in the middle of the night to do his Christmas shopping, just to get a feel for what that experience would be like.
Actually, if you want, I don't know where you can find all the different episodes that people have recorded using these. I know that Sage uses them on the subway. On my podcast, Electric Sky, I published a show back in January of a whale watching trip we went on in New Brunswick. And I was wearing these during the entire whale watching cruise. And you can actually hear the whales spout, and you can hear them splash in the water. The problem with these things, though, and Bob pointed this out actually when we were talking about when I use them, is if you turn your head, well, for the listener, the sound is now going to be in the right ear and not in the left, or depending on where you're facing. So even though your brain in the situation can interpret the sound and just kind of compensate for wherever it is, for somebody who's got these things on their earbuds in their ear listening to you talk, it can be really confusing. So if you're going to record something like a whale watching expedition, and it's really hard sometimes because the whales move around, you want to keep your head as still as possible. And you do a lot of this.
I can relate a similar story to for directional. We did a show, Kat and I, where we went through the McDonald's drive-thru, and I was using two little lapel mics, one on the left, one on the right, and as now like spins around me. No, and so we were using one for left, one for right. So one was clipped to her, one was clipped to me, but I didn't notice that I clipped them backwards. So people listening to our show, and we, heard, they heard us driving into the drive-thru and figured, well, we're in Quebec, and it's a French drive-thru. A lot of our listeners have never heard that before, so what's it like when you order a Big Mac in French? So we come to the drive-thru, and if you're listening, and you have your earbuds in the right ears, it really sounds like I am reaching across Kathy to go to the drive-thru window and come back because the microphones were switched. So if you're picturing who was driving, we had mentioned who was driving, and all of a sudden they're on the other side, you've just destroyed the illusion for your listener.
But you can fix that in production.
Well, you can fix that in production, yeah. I mean, I could have flipped it around, but I didn't even realize it was done until the listener said, "How long are your arms?" So that's something you want to keep track of. Is if you're creating a scene with sound, you want to be cognizant of the fact that you can really disrupt rather quickly. Bill?
Depending on whether you want or not, you can actually mix it down to mono afterwards, or you can just a lot of it. Like I know the iRiver, it'll record all too if you want.
Right. Bill's point is that you can actually do that in mono to take that aspect away, or you can mix it down to mono and just squish everything so the sound is the same coming out of both ears. So this is supposed to be a workshop on recording the show, so we're going to record the show. Is that okay? Everybody okay if we move with that? So what's our show called? Mark, you want to do show notes? Or?
I can take show notes if you'd like.
Just, or we can walk around. You know what, you can walk around and I'll do show notes. So, all right. First of all, first guess, what's our show called? Come on.
Zero to podcast.
Zero to podcasting?
Hiding in the closet.
Hiding in the closet. All right. Sorry, Mark. That's better because I can see where that could go. Okay.
With the blanket over your head.
In the closet. Okay. Everybody point to a host.
Point to who's your guys?
Can you tell I can't type it from there? It's like a head talking, somebody's moving their hands down.
Oh, it's in my back. No.
Easy. Told you I'd get Catherine using it back.
But before the end of this event, she's going to want the Mac to keep.
Yeah, that's the thing. All right, so we're going to record a podcast. It's going to be interviews. You're all going to be on it, and you're all going to be either reacting or whatever. So, Mark, are you recording?
I am recording.
All right, so you're a studio audience. Oh, well, it's okay. Okay. Get ambience on this one. So you're a studio audience. The theme music is fading out. The applause side is on. It's always one. I'm married. Okay, so now we have our music faded out. Our audience has applauded. Who's our host?
I'll be the host.
You'll be the host?
Sure.
Okay, you're going to go host. So, what's your name? Jennifer?
Jennifer.
And now here's your host, Jennifer.
Hi there, welcome to Hiding in the Closet. This is where we hide from our children when we want 2 minutes of peace. We have some fantastic guests this afternoon, and we've all been here hiding in the closet for the last half hour playing hide and seek with our kids, and they haven't found us yet. So our first guest is...
Actually, you know what? What's going to make this really funny is I went around the hallway asking people what is their favorite part of Podcamp Toronto.
Oh.
So what you could say here,
Okay.
to be funny, is we asked some parents what is the best part of hiding from their kids.
Okay. Today we asked some parents, what is their best part of hiding from their children? Here's what they had to say.
Perfect. Okay, so now we have our show opening. We have a sound effect. Now, we don't know what the answers are yet, but we've got a room full of people who right now are my puppets. So I want some ambient noise. Do you want to maybe start a new audio file?
Okay.
And we'll make an ambience. I want shock and awe.
Okay, hold on.
And then I'll want laughter, and then I'll want just outrage. All right. What? Shock and awe. Yeah. That'd be good. That'd be perfect. If you guys heard Whitney, she did that noise I can't make. So on the count of 3, I want very, very much shock. 1, 2, 3. That was awesome. Wow. Okay. So now I want ridiculous, like laughing like, oh my god, this person should not even be on this planet. Why are we here? Kind of like you're thinking right now.
We'll be able to put these up on like the open source.
Yeah, you have to sign like licensing agreements on your way out, right? So we can do this. All right, what's the next one?
You wanted horror. We have
shock. We have
or disgust or
disgust. Oh yeah, outrage. Outrage. I want to hear some outrage. Like, think of the Maple Leafs.
Gross.
That's awesome. All right. So now, how many questions did you record out there?
I recorded quite a few.
Okay. So anybody have an idea for another reaction that we wanted, or no? Okay. So now you want to ask Jennifer to record the wrap up?
Oh yes.
Unless you want the.
Oh yeah. The cuddly bunny sound.
Hold on.
Okay. Yes, Manny, the cuddly bunny sound. You know that's what it's called.
Yeah.
All right, cuddly bunny on 3.
Aww.
Some bunnies are more cuddly than others. All right, so now we have the cuddly bunny sound. All right, so now Jennifer.
Okay, but we can't forget the contact information, how to follow up with the show.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yes. So you need. Well, should we just use
InTheCloset.com.
InTheCloset.com? Okay.
Okay, but so
I can't actually use this recording anymore. That's got to be already registered anyways, right?
It's hiding in the closet, though.
Next year, Podcamp Toronto will be held on Pride Weekend.
Actually, you know what? I would suggest that we would probably use this on the Canadian Podcast Buffet in the next week's episode. We can put this whole show as part of that. So why don't we just use CanadianPodcastBuffet.ca?
Okay.
Okay, so what's the wrap up going to be?
So you wrap it up the way you feel that you should wrap it up, and then say, something about, don't forget our website, Canadian Podcast Buffet.
Okay, but is it like, so these are some great hiding places, or what? So it was like how people felt about hiding in the closet?
Yeah, some such thing, yeah.
So, you want to use that?
Well, we just use the website. We don't need a whole pile of information, just Canadian Podcast.
Okay.
Yeah,
see, this is production discussions that Marty and I have. Things you guys don't hear over Skype.
All right, Jennifer's going to do her thing right now.
Okay, so you're going to do the wrap up?
Sure.
Or what do you want to do? So what do you want out of the wrap up? Let's talk about that, because we're putting a show together, right? So we've introduced our topic, we've done our mandatory interviews, we have our sound effects, we'll find some music. So what's the last thing you want? Usually you end a show with a call to action. What do you want your listeners to do?
Subscribe.
Subscribe? Okay, that's good. What else? Tune in next week. So you're setting an expectation. You're making a date with your listener for the next episode. That's good.
Tune in next week when you hear our listening audience go,
oh. Or something like that. But okay, so
they tell them to check out their own closet.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Check out their own closet.
Give us money.
But there should only
give us money.
Money. Okay.
There should only be one message, right, at the end.
Why?
Why? So then you don't confuse your listener. What is the one message that you want to leave?
This is why we're not getting listeners on our show.
You were away for this part, but it was brought to my attention that I should repeat the questions because of the feed, they're not hearing anything. So Jennifer's point was that you want one message so that they don't confuse your listeners with multiple messages.
No.
No. No. Yes.
That was my question.
That was your question.
That is my question.
I think it's a valid point, but there's also you want to build a relationship, right? If you're just broadcasting, to use the term broadcasting, if you're sending out without expecting to come back, I think that's a great idea because you're gone because that's your message. But podcasting is about connecting. Yes. At least to me it is. So if you're connecting with people, you want to exchange. So if you want to exchange, I've reached you, you're listening to me. Here's how you can reach me. So you can reach me by either commenting on my blog, by sending me an email, by phoning it in, by leaving something nasty on my doorstep. You can do these things. So so I understand the one message thing, and I think that would work for a certain style of show. If it's an interaction show, or if you're trying to build a community around your show, you want to tell them. And typically, there's no rules about this. I think that typically people do it at the end, out of tradition now. I think more than anything. If you want contact information, it's usually at the end. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
A lot of guys intersperse it
in the middle,
all the way through.
You know, if you got thoughts on that, email me at ... If you have thoughts on this topic, email me at ... or call me at ...
Yeah, Keith's point is that people will also intersperse that throughout the show. You know, if you have an opinion, send me an email and give the email address at that point.
This is something I think you and I talked about the other day. I'll go over to that. This is something that you and I may have talked about in the most recent buffet, at least offline or online, and something that I've been thinking about is if you look at the Canadian Podcast Buffet website, which is right here, and if you scroll up a bit, oh yeah, she doesn't know.
Oh, there's
Scrolling. There. So we have, okay, in each episode we go, oh, don't forget our website, CanadianPodcastBuffet.ca, and our email address, CanadianPodcastBuffet@gmail.com, our Facebook group, Canadian Podcast Buffet. We also have a Facebook group for the Podcasters Across Borders Conference. Our feedback number is 2670. Okay, now, you're giving, I wonder sometimes if we're giving too many options. Oh, we have a hand already.
I used to give a full minute and 30 seconds of those options, and then I heard a show that you did, Electric Sky, and you just said you can contact me, here's my email address, and then the show is over, and I thought, well, that's really elegant. And so now when I end my show, I say you can contact me, here's my email address, for more information, visit the show notes, I'm done, it's out. So in terms of one message, you do it and you're done. That works really well for me, and I have gotten more feedback since then than I did when I was given the 47 options.
So, good point. Okay, I'll let you. No, and then I'll say my
No, but I think Sage has a really good point, because I've been discovering as I pare down my stuff at the end of the show, I get more comments. The other thing to add into what Jennifer was asking about how much do you give, or do you close with one thing? I just don't say, or sometimes I do. I say, if you have any comments or any feedback, you can contact me, blah. But sometimes I'll say, if you want to share your feelings about blah, 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 whatever I talked about, if you want to, tell me off, and every time I ask for something specific, I get feedback. Every time I ask for something that's just sort of general, here, write to me, I don't get feedback. So you might want to keep it simple, but you might want to say, like we were talking about, tell us your thoughts about being a parent in the closet.
Yeah, tell us the most wacky things you've done hiding in the
Yeah,
closet.
I think if you want to invite people to contribute, to give you feedback, I think you have to tweak something off in their memory, because I think if you don't, they just sort of go, oh, well, yeah, okay, maybe one day I'll get feedback.
I think that's the same reason why when you give many options for people to contact you, that it's sort of that indecisive kind of thing. It's too general. But if you have one key venue, then they're more likely to. And it's a psychological thing. They'll have a choice, too many choices.
So Connie's point is that if you give people too many choices, you'll get no action at all, and if you just give them one option, then they'll do it.
The marketers find that in the supermarket.
What's that?
The marketers find that in the supermarket. They give people too many choices. People don't choose.
They just stop buying the product.
That's marketing 101, one clear message.
One clear message. So the message might be more than one, but the contact method maybe could be one thing. So, Andrea?
Well, Marco just said that people are listening to our show. They're not at the computer, so we would stop doing that, or we get one piece of information when we have a service. So people are always on the phone. So maybe, if it's easy to remember, it's easier to remember from here to my phone even if it's not on me than it is back.
That's a good point. Andrea was saying that she has a kind of show where people are not typically listening at their computers. So the piece of information they might want to give out is their phone number.
But do they go to the computers to get the show? They do, so they're always going to be going back to.
They might not.
Yeah, but you might just have.
If they're subscribed, they might not go back to the site for months. It depends. It depends what kind of interaction it is, right? So Jennifer's point was that they do go back to your site, but they might not.
But also, if they're getting it through the iPod, then they're getting it when they're at their computer, but they might be listening to it on the bus.
Have you gone over the different free phone services that are available, like K7 and stuff already?
We mentioned them quickly. Maybe in the show, here, we'll just click on the other window there. Yeah, and just add in the tag links. We'll just add a section for free services that will take. They'll give you a phone number where people can call in comments.
Because I know that I'm much more likely to call in if I hear the number right at the end of the show, if you guys have said something or whatever. I'm much more likely to call right then if I'm listening in the car or something, and leave comments for people.
Mitch Joel, like he'll repeat his phone number. He says at the beginning of the show, after he plays a comment, he'll remind people the phone number. Maybe a few comments later, he'll go, "Don't forget my phone number is this." At the end of the show, he gives his phone number again. So if you haven't memorized it at the end of the show, you at least know that there's a number of different places that you can find the phone number.
It can also be very irritating, though, to hear somebody breaks the flow and repeating again and again and again how to contact them. So.
Yeah, Scarberry's point was that if you repeat the phone number over and over again, it could be irritating to your listeners. So there's that fine line, right? You're gonna, no matter what you do, something is going to irritate somebody, and the idea is you don't want to irritate the people you're trying to reach.
Joe Jaffe's putting it on his graphic that would show up on your iPod.
Oh yeah. When you do a podcast in iTunes for an iPod, there's a little graphic that shows up on certain models of iPod that shows while the audio is playing, and some people put the phone number in there. And that's a good point. But if I'm on a Zoom, or I don't know if Zooms do it, but if I'm on an iRiver, it doesn't have a graphical display. You're not going to see it. So the idea is you want to reach. And that's not obtrusive, so I mean, if you don't have it, you're not going to lose it. But you can't rely on just that as the way to get your listeners to call you in. So what we need now is we need somebody to call into the show, right?
Well, we just did a call-in.
Just did a call-in?
But we can do a different call-in if you want.
Well, we should have Jennifer introduce the call-in, and then we can. We'll do a different. And then in the next part of this, we're going to actually put this together and make a show, right? You guys kind of figure that out. That's what we're doing.
What is our caller going to
We're
tell
going to record
us?
all this audio and then take it to Montreal and erase it.
What is our caller going to call in about? So maybe a parent is hiding in the closet when they're phoning.
Okay. Who wants to be a parent in the closet?
Playing against type here, or what are we doing?
Okay. Hold on.
267-220-3701. It's in Seattle. Did he just call it? No. Record that sound.
I'm hiding in the closet right now. Kids are looking for me. There's like 5 of them. They've like organized. This closet is really good. It's like this walk-in closet. We found some really old clothes here. Polyester's itching. I don't know what to do. Oh, they're here. Help.
Big hand for the phone. Okay, so now if technology holds up, at some point my Gmail will flash and there will be a phone message that is what we start. So what do we got? We have everything? We have all our audio recorded?
No, we never recorded the wrap-up.
The wrap-up.
Oh, did we get into the wrap-up?
So how about the intro to the call and then the wrap-up? Oh, we still hadn't decided the call to action, right? Is it just to phone in? What do you guys? Let's see a show of hands. What's it like?
Next week?
Is it next week? Is it maybe? Yeah. Okay.
Next week, where we talk about the most bizarre things people have done hiding in the closet, or
How about decorating the closet?
pardon me?
Decorating the closet.
Decorating the closet. We'll do a decorating the closet. Sure.
All right. So we're going to wrap up. So those of you on the feed will.
So
really hear
introduce
this.
the call is a separate piece.
Okay, but the call, so we just have a caller, but we don't even know the caller's name. We have a parent that's been hiding in the closet for 2 days, and
Yes.
That's true. And it is pre-recorded, so. Or you could just say, here's an interesting call.
We received a caller from a parent. Let's go to that.
Call 911.
And now we have an interesting call from a parent who's been in the closet for the last 3 days. Let's see what he has to say.
Okay. And then same file. We
Pretty good, and then we'll do the wrap-up. Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here, and I can't wait for you to join us next week where we find out about what people have done decorating in their closet. We'll see you next week, and you can... That's too long.
No.
Give me a call, and then just make a phone number. It's not going to matter.
Give me a call at 1-800-523-1111. Talk to you next week.
That's great.
Awesome. There we go. The hosting duties are done. So now, as is typical, the talent goes to a beach and gets a tan, while the techie and audio people do the production and do the grunt work to get the show out on time. Right?
That's what I was going to say, that most podcasts are not recorded like this with pieces all over the place and then all these different elements that you're going to put together and produce the way we're doing it here. A lot of podcasts, people just turn on the recorder, they'll talk for a few minutes about something they're passionate about, and they'll shut off the recorder. As Scarborough dude takes his recorder with him in a number of different places, and he records different segments and threads them together at the end of the week. Throws his intro music and his extra music out onto the show with some connecting music in between segments. And so there's a little bit more work there, obviously. Canadian Podcast Buffet, we double end it, and so we record the show beginning to end with a lot of screw-ups in the middle. And so we chop up and we slice and dice.
By double ending, just because Mark's in Ottawa and I'm in Montreal, so what he means by double ending, and get your mind out of the gutter, is we each record on our own digital recorder. He uses his Edirol and I'll use my audio, and we're speaking on the phone or on Skype. But we're only using the Skype just to be able to talk to each other, and we're each recording ourselves with our own studio microphones where we sound our best. Then, through the magic of post-productions, we put those two audio files together and it sounds like we're in the same room. So that's what a double-ended recording is. So you're putting everything in your favor because you have the best sounding audio possible. We could have had one good sounding voice and then one Skype voice, and there's been times where we've had a glitch and we've had to do that. But ideally we like having both sounding good because it's just more presence that way.
When you talk about phone interviews, by the way, which we were talking about earlier, this is something that you can do if you're going to interview another podcaster, or if you're going to have a podcaster on your show for whatever reason, or somebody who might be in audio or radio who has the technology. You can say, hey, listen, we want to do this interview. Can you record your end and send it to me afterwards? And if you trust that person to do what you want them to do, you don't have to record both ends of the conversation, and then you can receive their piece, and it sounds like you're in the same room.
Any other question over here?
Yeah, it's actually just a comment on that. I'm not sure if I heard it on your show or like on some other show, but with that double ender thing, it generally works really well. Unless you use a iRiver, because that little iRiver is good, except I think it's just a little bit off in terms of the megahertz or something. It's not 44.1. I think it's just 44, and that's. I know it's just it sounds like some insignificant thing, but it actually causes some sort of problem.
Right. Okay. So that's a great point. Angelo's point is that if you're using an iRiver or some devices, the standard for digital recording is 44.1 kilohertz, which means that it's actually taking a snapshot of the sound 44.1 times per second. And one of these iRivers, or I think it was the iRiver, instead of doing 44.1 times a second, it did 44 times a second, which doesn't seem like much. You think, wow, 0.1 over a second. When you take that second and you multiply it over several minutes, and what happens is one of the audio files, for the same amount of time that you took to record it, actually ends up being shorter. So when you're lining it up for the double ender, all of a sudden he's starting to answer the question I haven't finished asking yet, and they end up overlapping. So you end up having to correct all the time. That's a great point. I haven't seen it happen in a while. Maybe it's because the iRivers aren't. Maybe that's why they pull the iRivers. I don't know. But it's a good point. It's work to sync it up because sometimes you'll have.
We had that problem when you were using your mini disc recorder.
Right. Yeah, because it was doing analog. Yeah.
And so there would be a drift, and every few minutes you have to adjust because it had drifted out that much.
Right.
But ever since you moved to digital, everything's been fine.
Okay, so if we go back to our show that we're doing, the only thing we haven't done really is play music. And I guess this kind of shows not appropriate, but really playing music is one of the simplest things you can do in editing because you just drop the file in and make sure that your talking stops before the song starts or whatever. And so the music part is safe. We can play with it if we have time, but that's really the part we haven't done. And the other thing I want to add is, to build on Mark's point, the way we record this show is pretty much the most complicated way to record a podcast. It's a great way because, as ideas came, we did it, and we didn't have to worry about sequence. We did everything out of sequence, and we just let it go. But it'll show nicely what you can do in editing because you can resequence stuff. But if you can avoid it, you want to lay out some sort of plan ahead of time and then have it sequential.
You mentioned the music component. What about where to get music? Because I know there's PodShow, you can get PodSafe music, but then you have to do an audio plug for them every time you use their music.
There's lots of sources for music. If you're looking, first of all, music. Everybody knows about rights issues. If you can't take Zeppelin and use it as your show opening. legally. I mean, you probably can, they won't come after you, but you can't. I know Black Dog is an amazing song to start a podcast with, but your listeners are going to get tired of it because they hear it every 8 minutes on the radio anyways. And it's just, you can't do it. It's legally, it's not yours to use. So you have to go to sources. There's Podshow, the Podshow Music Network. They have musicians who submit their stuff, and they want people to hear their music, so they'll come back and buy their CDs. But then the caveat with that is that the agreement with Podshow is that you have to mention the music provided by Podshow. That's really not hard to get around, because you can include that in your show because everybody else is doing it too. So it's not going to jar your listeners here. Well, thanks to the Podshow Music Network for supplying the music for this episode. You know what? That's a very standard message, and you got the music for free just for saying that. So it's not a bad deal. There's also places where you can go. There's Creative Commons licensed music. There's a site called GarageBand.com, which has nothing to do with. No, you don't have to go there. It has nothing to do with the Apple software. It's just a place where musicians can promote their music, and if they hear that somebody in Canada wants to play my song, they're all happy and they'll gladly let you do it. There's guys like Virgil, who makes his music available. There's Derek K. Miller, who does the same thing as well, who records music, records music, and just says, here, you know what, guys? Use it. Do what you want with it. So free PodSafe music, etc. Yeah, so that's Derek Miller around Vancouver. And he says, you know what, you need theme music? Most of his stuff is instrumental. And
where is it? He actually has a list of bits on the list. And this is changed the way it looks.
Anyway, so here's a Creative Commons. We're going to talk about that more a bit later. There was a Creative Commons license on his music, which all it means is that you can't make money off my music. That's what his license really says. He reserves the right to make that nobody else should make money off his music if he doesn't.
I mean, if you're dealing with indie bands, which are the easiest bands to deal with as far as the rights go, because for the most part they own the rights to their music, they own complete rights, ask them. That's the easiest way to do it. You ask them. Every band I play is an indie or an unsigned band. They own the rights to their music, and I literally just, I used all those other sources, but I asked them. And I've yet to be rejected. I mean, they're go for it. But they have to own the rights to their music completely, and that means mechanical, and the label can't own anything. They have to be able to say okay. But most indie bands, and certainly unsigned bands, in other
words, once a band signs with a label, they sign away the rights to make all the money off that music, right? So the label can take their cut and do whatever they want. And if it's an unsigned band, then the decision rests with them. Yeah. And like Mark says, not many musicians make music to not be heard.
Exactly.
So usually
more than happy to have, and they will actually plug your podcast. They will on their MySpace site or on their website. I always ask the bands, make sure you spread the word, and I give them the graphic to my podcast. They put it on their MySpace page, their website. They send out an email to like all their fans or whatever, and that's kind of and it's dead simple. They will not say no. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah, since 2004, I've never had a refusal either. In fact, the only thing I've ever had happen is I had a band contact me and say, we'd love to play if you played us. And they sent me the track, and then I looked it up, and it wasn't cleared.
Okay.
It was, the rights weren't cleared, but the band thought they had the rights. And there's a website you can go and look up. And so I had to say, hey, nice tune, but I can't play it. What do you mean you can't play it? It's our tune. No, you guys signed this contract with Warner. I can't play your tune.
Stay away from major labels. That is probably the easiest thing to do.
I don't want to get too caught up on the music discussion because we're going to produce the show, and then we're going to talk about creative licensing. You're going to be around for? I'd like you to be around because you're doing a lot of music stuff too. So
just quickly before we move, because you're starting to point at Creative Commons, we can talk more about it later on. But there is the Creative Commons podcasting legal guide. There's a Canadian version. This is actually the Canadian version of it. And if you just go to creativecommons.ca, search in the Powered by Google search bar for podcasting legal guide, it'll take you to this page, and you can download a PDF or even go to the wiki site for it. And it will outline all sorts of information for you about music use. It will outline information for you about interviews and all sorts of rights issues.
Yeah, so if you're wondering if you're allowed to use something, this will help you figure it out. Jennifer, you got a question?
I was just wondering, I mean, you said you can't play Zeppelin, but what if somebody else did their own cover of Zeppelin? Can you play that?
Did you write that song? There's three rights. There's the songwriting, which is the publishing rights. Then you have mechanical reproduction, which is actually playing the record. And then the third one is, Mark? Performance, which is Led Zeppelin's performance of that song.
Or it could be your performance.
Right.
And there is a license that you can buy somewhere, I can't remember whose it is, where you pay for a license and you can record your own version of the song and play it on your show. Because I can't remember how it goes.
Well, it's like, do you guys remember the story when the Beatles lost their song catalog to Michael Jackson? Yeah. Right? That was like a dark day in history. So what happened is, Michael Jackson outbid Paul McCartney, and he got the rights to the whole Beatles catalog, and within, I think, hours, there was a Nike commercial with the song Revolution. Okay? Now what happened is, it got pulled. Why? He had the full publishing rights. He did not have the performance rights. So he had the right to the song Revolution, but he did not have the right to the Beatles performing that song. So they had to recut the album that sounded like band, and then they got sued for sounding too much like the Beatles, and then so they just pulled the campaign. So it's crazy.
It's got so absurd that the cover versions, and what's happening in the States is clubs are getting sued because the bands that are playing in the clubs are playing covers, and they're being sued, and the clubs are not paying I think it's the performance rights fees to cover that. And labels are going in and saying, that band played 3/4 of their songs with covers. You guys haven't paid for the rights to these songs. Pay up. And
really desperate.
Clubs are basically telling bands, it's got to be all original. Yeah. It's the only way we can allow you to play here.
Like right now in this digital space, right? The music industries, the record companies' business model is collapsing. So they're going after everything they can get. So they're not going to turn a blind eye to much. Which is why if you want to avoid trouble, you want to make sure you have the rights to do what you're going to do.
I was just going to say that I was just at the Soundscape session, and there's a gentleman in the audience who is currently being sued because of a recording he did in a public place, and there was copyrighted music playing in the background.
Wow, that's a good point. I was saying that she was in another session and somebody's being sued because he recorded in a public place and there was music playing. So we're talking about ambient noise. If you're recording in a coffee shop like you guys do, and Black Dog by Led Zeppelin is playing in that coffee shop, well, first of all, that'd be a cool coffee shop. But second of all, you can't use that audio because there it is. It doesn't matter if it's being used as a bed or if it's being used as the main track. You're not cleared to play that music.
Angelo, quick question. Do you know any of like a pod show, GarageBand.com type site that has Canadian music or mostly Canadian music at least? Out of curiosity.
Specifically Canadian? I know on GarageBand.com you can search by country and you can search by by regional.
Okay, that's good.
I don't know if Podshow does it. Their search engine tends to be
also IODA promo.
Oh, the PromoNet, yes. Good.
But I mean, really, a lot of times what happens is the bands might be Canadian, but they might be on American labels, indie labels, or whatever. So, but honestly, just Google it. Just Google it, and if you're not sure, ask the band.
Okay.
But if you're looking for, search for Canadian pod-safe bands in Google. You'll get all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, okay, so that's a good advice. So Mark is saying search for Canadian pod-safe bands.
If you have a local band, an independent band that's just up and coming, they're playing some good original tunes.
And sometimes, you ask that if you really like a band, one of the coolest things that one pod show did was they had that band record the intro and outro, which is actually what I've done as well. I have a band in Miami and they get a plug on all the show notes and on every show because I kind of consider them the house band. And they love doing it. It's a way for them to get their music out, and it's constant. Every show they're being played. And indie bands will do almost anything you ask. And just get a good relationship going, you'll get all kinds of support.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention too that if you go searching for music, and if you think it's too good to be true, it probably is. And I've got an example of this because I did a podcast a couple weeks ago and I thought, oh God, I need a song about a sweater. What's the first thing you think of when you think sweater?
The sweater song.
The sweater song, Mary Cadell. Well, I thought, okay, I know that's not going to be pod safe. So we went searching and searching, and Rob turned it up on the Internet Archive. And it had a label saying it was
Public domain.
Public domain. And I said, okay, this cannot be. And I could have said, okay, I'm going to take it on faith, I'm going to use the song. I wrote to Mary Cadell, who's now a professor at UBC, who wrote back and said, oh, God, thank you for telling me this. They've already pulled it because I wrote to them. So just honestly, if you think it's too good to be true, it probably is, and it doesn't hurt to do a little extra legwork, particularly if, like Andrea is saying, people are getting sued because there's something just in the background.
Yeah, it's really touchy. But Mark brought up ProNet before, and that's the IODA, Independent Online Distribution Alliance or something. And it's a grouping of independent labels, and you'll be surprised sometimes when you find out that. I remember I found Nat King Cole. And I love Nat King Cole, and that stuff is locked under lock and key. And all of a sudden there was this one version of a song he did, and it was an old song, so the song was already public domain, and that performance had never been relicensed. So there it is sitting on PromoNet, and I got to play Nat King Cole on my show, which was like, wow, that's really cool. So you keep your eyes open, because sometimes the door will close, but sometimes the door will open that you didn't expect to see.
And a lot of musicians don't know about podcasting, and they don't know about PodSafe music. And what you should really do if you're dealing with musicians, I always push and educate them on what podcasting is and what PodSafe music is, and how they should probably want to put a couple of songs out there and make them PodSafe. And most of the times we didn't know that. We'll do it for sure. What do we have to do? Send them the link to wherever, PromoNet or whatever, and they work on it. And as you do that, you build up the ecosystem, and more bands become aware. You have more music to choose from, and it kind of all feeds. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne's on the PodSafe Music Network now.
So is that Howard Jones?
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
Alice Cooper.
it's
so
the
we're
things
two
to
Led
do.
Zeppelin covers by Ann Wilson. Ann Wilson.
Yeah.
Oh, Nancy Wilson. Is it? No, it's Ann Wilson. You're right.
Oh, from the Wilsons? Oh my God.
Yeah, Hart.
What would be the best site you recommend to research?
All of them. Seriously, it depends what you're looking for. I've had great luck with PromoNet and GarageBand.com. I'm a big fan of.
GarageBand.com is good.
For me, that's one of the oldest ones.
If you're doing a music site, that's what takes the most time.
Yeah.
It's not the recording, it's not the technical stuff, it's the researching and getting the bands and connecting with them and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what takes the most time.
Yeah, GarageBand.com was it was an outgrowth. What was the musician site before that? It was MP3. It was MP3.com had a section where musicians could submit their music, and when there was the whole lawsuits with Metallica and all that stuff happened, that site ended up getting killed as well. And so the guys behind that started GarageBand.com.
It's actually one of the talking heads is involved.
Yeah, and George Martin. George Martin is on the panel as well. So we should get to producing audio, right?
I think Sage
has something to say.
Oh, I just wanted to say, if you're looking for more instrumental, just as Ben's for stories or for intros or outros, Magnitude is an excellent resource.
Magnitude.
Also, Jamendo, Jamendo, yeah.
If I can give a piece of advice if you're considering a music show, is that if you go to the PodSafe Music Network or whatever, and you click the top 10, don't play those songs. Everybody else is playing those songs, and this is the machine we're trying not to be, right? So go out and find music that speaks to you, because there's people searching for music, and they're looking for the same thing you are, but all they keep hearing is the same 4 bands over and over again.
Be a filter.
Be a filter. Be somebody's reviewer, right? Mark said be a filter, and that's really what you want.
The music, I tell bands all the time, the great thing about podcasts, the people that play the music are passionate about the music, because they play it because they like it. And that is what probably reflects best on the listeners. I say, well, Bob likes this band. I like Bob's taste. I'm going to buy the CD or whatever. But that's the difference between podcasting and radio.
Yeah.
Radio plays to pay. We play it because we love it. And it's as simple as that.
That's right. And you end up feeling a loyalty to your audience. I'm sure that you, Mark, with the Rock Roll Report, you know what your audience is expecting because you've set that bar. And so now you're picking based on what you think or what you want to project for your show. Me, it's the same way. People know mostly tunes. They're going to hear a certain style of music and they're going to hear it in a certain format. And if I was to start doing death metal for 3 shows in a row, I would lose whatever listeners I have.
Well, if you're not making money off of your show, how could you get sued for using that licensed music?
But it's not about making money. It's not about making money because you're not selling the CD. For sure, that's the blatant. Christmas point is that you can. Why would you get sued if you're not making money? And the fact is that you're still using a licensed work without a license.
You won't get sued for as much money.
Right. But they can still come to your house. They can still come.
Well, look at the Tories. I don't know if you're here earlier. The Tories are had their door knocked on by Warner Music. A newspaper article. It's just in the paper yesterday. The very government that wants to introduce DMCA-like law to go after people and put more of the power into the rights holders Copyright Tough Guys. Tories face the music for using the song. They made a campaign video, and they used For the Love of Money in their campaign video. And even though they're not selling it, even though it's not specifically an ad as they claim it, they said it was for internal use. It's still use.
So don't underestimate the greed of the major.
Because they won't sue based on what
Exactly.
you paid. They're going to pay. They're going to sue based on what they thought they could get for that license, right? So if they say, for the love of money, for any commercial that wants to use that, we're going to charge $15,000, and you use it for free, the minimum they could seriously go in front of a judge and have any credibility, they have to sue you for at least $15,000 because that's what they would have charged to use it too. So that's where it really comes. You know, it's like rent. A license is rent to use something, and you have to make sure that it's okay to sleep on the couch.
We can go really deep into this conversation about rights, and we can talk more about some things that's okay and in Korea are doing. But I think that's going to chew up a lot of time, and we should probably get into the production side.
Yeah. So do we have a break before we put the audio together? Is that what we want to do?
Do we want 5 minutes?
What do you guys want to do? You guys want a break? Do you want to keep going? It's hands for a break. Hands, keep going. Keep going? Okay, so we're going to keep going. So, do you have the memory? Or USB?
USBs.
All right, so what we're going to do now is Mark has recorded different bits. I'm going to put this here. So now we're going to get into putting a show together.
Very sensitive. Yeah, it's very sensitive. Yeah, so I'm going to get hold of this.
So now the audio files that Mark recorded with his recorder, right, they're all sitting here. And you can tell the names are very descriptive, right? Like this is obviously Cuddly Bunny sound, right? So if you're going to record with the portable recorder, it doesn't know what you want to call the file, right? It'll just add a sequence number. So try not to record too much. You know, like don't record 9 shows in a row on one memory card because you're going to dig forever to find out where you are. But we know that these 11 files are part of our show today.
Another.
Okay. So because the link is already there and because we're allowed to use it, where's the...
No, it's...
What was it trying
this, what's it called?
Where'd you find it?
You're moving too quickly. Whoa. Scroll down.
Scroll down. This is fascinating.
Yeah,
all right, so this
is how we produce shows.
All right,
a little bit more.
So this is the song.
Fake it.
Fake out. So that we know is. Okay, so that's pretty peppy. That would be like that's pretty good intro music. So we're gonna just add that to our.
It sounds like hiding in the closet kind of music.
It sounds like you're fearful of being found out. Hiding in the closet. All right, so we're gonna go and put that there.
Sounds like a party in the closet.
All right, so now we have our music. We have most of our pre-recorded bits.
Should the intro be the same music as the outro, or should it be the same parts of the song, or does it matter? Or?
It comes down to branding at that point, right? For example, on Buffet, we use the same song for everything. Opening, closing, whatever. But that song, we've been using it for so long, and people hear the first 2 notes of that song, and they go see Robert Farrell Band, and they hear those notes, and hey, that's the Canadian Podcast Buffet song.
So you use that for your transitions for different parts of your podcast.
We use bits of that song for everything. So it's become so tightly tied into our brand that we might still eventually change it, but for right now we can't. It's that link is that tight. Now
we actually thought about changing it in the first year we were talking about it.
Yeah, by Radio Guy. So.
And do you use a song that has lyrics, or
no? It's an instrumental tune, right? I'm not gonna play it because everybody's heard it a million times, but it's kind of like that. It's a guitar, drums type number, And it's nice because there's no singing. We can use it a million different ways.
Now, did you think about your target audience and what type of music they would like when you were selecting your song?
Honestly, the band that recorded the song is a good friend of Mark's, and we had the rights, and nobody else had known of the song. So right away we knew that we were the only ones using the song. Like for example, Fake Out here from Derek, he's had that up on his website now for a couple of years. I would bet that at least 30 podcasts have used that music. So if the song is very much tied to your branding, you might want to
use it though.
You might want to commission something. One of my shows, Bob and AJ show, Mark wrote the theme for it. So I know that unless people are blatantly, stealing it, I know that we're the only ones using that piece of music. So, if it's pretty cheap to get music commissioned sometimes, or especially if you know musicians or whatever. And like Mark was saying, if you're doing a music show, ask one of the bands to do it. And
I had a band that I didn't even know who they were. They contacted me and said, "Like your show, we want to do an intro."
Yeah.
And then they did it, and it's original, and I've got all the rights, and it's no problem.
I think sometimes when you're thinking about podcasting, you're thinking about what your customers want all the time. What I've learned, even in blogging, a lot of times they're not coming there for what they think they want. They're coming to you for what you want, for what your interests are. So if you see a song that's like resonates with you really well, just pick that song and say that's the one. I think a lot of times people are saying, well, in traditional media, people are always saying, well, this is what people want to see on the news, so this is why we play this on the news. But podcasting is almost, everything is reversed. People are coming to you for your opinion, for your views, for your thoughts, for the things that you think are important. And I think if you reverse your marketing a little bit and think about what is really passionate with me and what resonates really well with me, and other people are going to kind of grip onto that passion.
Your only guaranteed listener is you, so produce it for yourself.
And that's a great point. If you try to cater to everybody, you end up with what radio is now, right?
Andrew?
Oh, I was just going to say that, like for our show, it was a song that had words and everything, but Mark just found little pieces and he put them together.
Yeah.
So that, because I think you asked if the song had words, like sometimes you can find hidden instrumental pieces and just put them together.
Yeah, if you're a geek like me, that was another Robert Farrell song. And I think he understands. If you're a geek like me, this is another Robert Farrell song. It was a song that our daughter really loved, and I took the intro, and going from the intro, there was a verse, and I didn't want any lyrics, so I managed to cut the song to the beat into the instrumental section in the middle of the song, and then cut from the instrumental song to the extra, and I found them right on the beat. So if you listen to it, you'd never know.
What's a reasonable time for in and out?
In and out.
How long?
Like how long an intro?
Yeah, how long an intro?
That's been you know what the question is how long an intro. That's been a big debate because there are people who get into the whole radio, David Letterman, big intro thing. I've gotten on people's cases. Dude, there was one show I used to listen to all the time. The music was phenomenal. Seriously, the best indie music. I don't know where he found this music. It was amazing. But his intro was 1:40 seconds. And he put out a weekly show. So for every week, I'm like, I gotta start over.
Well, and there's other shows. There's I won't say the name of the show, but it's amazingly popular. It has several thousand listeners. And the intro, it's almost exactly 2 minutes and 2 seconds long each week. And so I know, as soon as it starts, I'm skipping over. And you've actually been in touch with this person. Well, we both said you got to shorten it up, and you offered to shorten it up. It hasn't happened yet.
Well,
you did?
He plays a shorter version now.
Okay,
but
it's still it's not radio. People want to hear what you have to say. They don't want to hear a long spiel. So, and they don't want to hear the same intro music show in, show out. In fact, on Just One More Book, our intro used to be something like 30 seconds long or something. Our intro music. And then I made a really short version. I used the short version, which is I think about 15 or 16 seconds long. I use that most of the time. And then every now and then I'll throw in that longer one just to break it up.
I think the long intro used to come from radio because radio you had nothing else telling you what was next. So all of a sudden, okay, it's 5 o'clock. Then, all right, here's the next minute where you're going to tell you what you hear for the next hour. But on a podcast, they've just been to your website. They've seen your logo, they've seen your artwork, they've seen your site design. They have an idea if you're about goth metal or about golf. They know. So you don't say, this is a show about golf, metal golf. No, they see it. They see the guy with the scary eyes and a 3-iron. They know that. So you don't have to tell them that again. So it's almost like respect for your listener. First of all, if you have a 20-minute show and you give them a 2-minute intro every week, they'll hate you. They'll wake up in the middle of the night to hate you. And then, so you want to have respect for your listener.
2 minutes in an hour is a long time, right?
Yeah, but in an hour, it's like, oh, whatever, it's an hour. It'll blend in easier. But the thing is that it is so easy to skip, right? So what do you want? Do you want your listener to skip, or do you want them to hear your whole show? So assault them as quick as you can, and then get on with your show. That's my point of view.
Well, the other thing is radio, the intros are has to be set length, whereas in podcasting, you know, what you're doing, you have a little bit more flexibility. The other point is going to make this, and going back to sort of the history of radio and where it relates to podcasting, it used to be that you had a jock and you followed a certain jock because the certain jock had like a taste for music that you had. And it was before radio became formulaic and the very thing that everyone's sort of becoming an activist against now. But I think that in when you podcast, there's a lot to be learned from the early days of radio and why did radio grow as an industry? And it's because people trusted other people, they trusted the voice, they trusted the content, they trusted the taste, and that's where a whole industry that now everyone's trying to get away from grew from.
Well, the thing is that trust was abused, right?
Yeah.
Because here's a new song I found for you, and then you drive 600 kilometers away. Hey, here's a new song I found for you. It's the same song, and then hey, here's a new song I found for you. It's the same song. So then people smarten it up. I mean, that's pretty much what happened.
Well, and then just no, actually, we'll talk about that later.
All right,
just get
so
into production.
we're going to get into production here. So the first thing we could do is we could bring everything into our editing software. But what I like to do is actually look at what I'm bringing in. So the first one is fake out. That's pretty obvious. If I preview that, that's our theme music. Good. What is our first one here? The fact is that, and we're going to talk about recording the show.
Well, that's
What do you
actually
need if you're going to record?
speaker, just to show audio.
The fact is that, and we're going to talk about recording the. So I will rename that to. Is that just?
I was just demonstrating that you can record. What I was doing there is while Bob was talking through the microphone, I had my microphone up on speaker, just recording him come through.
Looking at editing and mixing things like that. We'll take that audio.
Yes. What is your name?
So
My name is Manny.
That's what your shirt.
Okay, so that's for question one.
That's sure. That's the portable or the streeters.
Okay, streeters.
Does it matter that some files are MP3 and some are WAV?
No, actually. Well, it does if your software can't handle it, right? In the case of Audacity, you'll handle each one fine. You're going to want your final product to be an MP3 or an AAC, which is kind of like an MP3 anyways.
R2, what was it?
AAC, which is like an Apple formatted MP3. But if you want everybody can play MP3s. Everybody can play WAV files. But a WAV file is huge, and MP3 is a compressed file, so it's much smaller. So you really want to be sending out MP3 files. Is what you want to see in your file. Yeah, there's nobody who can't play an MP3. I just try to identify our host audio here.
Ryerson is going to give me a demonstration of QuickTime broadcast. Okay, this is in the machine room. That's again.
Okay, we'll go on the machine room. And then.
Well, actually, don't use that. I took it off my thing, so don't use that.
I'll keep everything.
This is for the Zero podcasting session. Who are you?
My name is.
Okay, so that was
Chris Rogan
okay.
and Virgil.
Okay, we'll just call that Rogan. And you'll see why I'm doing this now.
What is your favorite part of Podcamp Toronto?
Okay, so we'll call it question 2.
Well, that's a group of, whatever.
Or just...
There's a group of them.
Is Audacity a web tool, or is that something that's...
It's locally installed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Using these, I know that Sage uses them on the subway. On my podcast, Electrics.
Okay, so that's binaural.
Oh, that's the binaurals, right?
We might not use that.
I am recording.
All right, so.
Oh, this is probably this.
Well, separately or all together?
And there's 2 files, I think.
Okay, so we'll call it sound effects 1. Next one.
So it becomes amazingly easy when you produce your stuff if all of your audio files, your source audio files are named, so when you import them, you know how to hold on, we go over here in the middle.
No,
I don't know if the host is on there as well.
So you see, it'll be a lot easier to, if I want to find my sound effects, to look for the file called SFX than it will be to find R001012.wave. So that's the whole idea. And that's just about work methods more than software.
Hold on. All right.
Cuddly Buddy on 3. Okay, that's Cuddly Buddy. You can't lose Cuddly Buddy.
Okay, but we can't forget the contact information, how to follow up with the show. Cuddly Buddy would have included the host. The host might be embedded in there. Let's see.
Let's see what the file says.
Well, it's
15 meg. There's a lot of this one.
Okay, but we can't forget the contact information, how to follow up with the show. Yes, if you have iTunes, so you need, well, should we just use inthecloset.com? Okay.
Okay, but so...
That's the closer.
No, it's hidinginthecloset.com. No, it's hidinginthecloset.com. So the Canadian Podcast Buffet.
Okay, so we'll call it closing.
Next week's episode.
There's more discussion. So you see, there's some great audio in there, but it's buried in 15 minutes of what we'll soon call crap. Right? So we have to. And what do we do after the closing?
This might be the actual closing.
Yeah,
because
maybe
it-
interesting. So introduce the call as a separate.
Oh, yeah,
so
with the
so
call
that is
button.
the closing. The other one was a junk file.
So really closing.
2 days.
Yes.
And then this one will be
Board.
Useful. All right. So now we have all our files.
Oh no!
we have the, I got the call in.
What's this one?
So that one there is the amp room, which might be good for ambient stuff. I actually jacked up the volume at one point in this, but this is the unit sitting on the table in the middle of the room.
Did you check your mail for the call-in?
No, but now I think I might because that sounds like a good idea. Yeah. All right. So the ST we know is the ambience.
That first one is the ambience. The second one is more group. What's your name and what's your favorite part of Podcamp Toronto?
Okay.
So I was using the H2.
All right. So it's group 2. So we'll call it group 2.
So the difference between that group 2 and the earlier group is the earlier group I was walking around with a microphone. The earlier group I was walking around with a microphone with my Adderall R1, recording people, and I was literally sticking a microphone in their face. And the second one I was using my Zoom H2 and putting that in their face. So you can get a better sense of what kind of ambient noise you might pick up with a different type of microphone.
Now,
Hold on. Angela first.
Oh. Where's the where's the audience comments? The gasp and stuff
Oh,
like that.
That's the sound effects.
Oh, that was elsewhere. Okay.
now, since it'll be interesting to see the end product because each of these inputs are going to have different sound levels, and then are we going to look how you're going to, very good thinking.
Yeah, we're going to. We have time to go, right?
We hope so. You're fast, right? Just you don't have to show them how you do it. Just do it.
That applies to a lot of ways. All right, so if we look at my Gmail account now, there's two things from JConnect. I use a service called J2. It's the same kind of service as you've heard of K7. It's basically a service. It's a free voicemail system,
but it uses a different letter and number.
It's a different area code. Thank you. A different yeah.
Which is better?
I've never used K7.
That's why I just started.
Because K7 expires, right? If you don't get any incoming calls, I don't know if it's 30 days.
30 days.
30 days, Mark? Okay, so K7, if nobody leaves you a message in 30 days, you lose your phone number. So audio files in your show notes stay out there with the wrong phone number forever. J2, I've not hit that wall. I don't know what it is. It might be. I've just been lucky. And you know what? For the K7 thing, if you don't want to lose the phone number, all you have to remember is put an X on your calendar every month, phone yourself, leave a message, in case nobody's calling.
Chris Ben actually said if you put up something on your website saying that your fax number is, and you list that same number as your fax number, then all these spam fax companies will just hit your phone every now and then for you. You don't have to worry about it.
Oh, that's good. That's interesting. So anyway, so I have these files here, and K7? K7, the advantage is it sends you an MP3, I think it does, right?
Yeah.
And you have a choice of higher quality or lower quality.
Right. J2 sends you a file called a GSM file, which is a phone audio format. Audacity looks at GSM and goes, so I'll have to convert that to MP3 before we can use it. So if we listen to this message here, just because we know that's probably it.
Well, let's play the second message.
Hi, my name is Troy Whitmore. My favorite part so far have been the technology discussion.
Okay, great. So we have a phone message there, and close the window. Disk. And then there's the other one. Now send that to disk. Okay, so there we go. So now
riveting content here.
And now, for your excitement, ladies and gentlemen, I will drag and drop these files. Please, no wagering.
So, just to set up, so what Bob's done now is he's flagged all the files that he needs, and he knows how he's going to use them. He'll open up Audacity and import them. And Bob works he and I work in a very similar style. What we'll do is we'll take all of those files, import them into our audio editing suite, and then sequence them. We know roughly where they're going to be, but more importantly, we know we're going to use the intro, the host intro. We're going to use that fairly early in the show, we figure. Probably near the beginning.
Yep.
We'll use the call-ins probably second, because that's the way the host introduced the show. Then there's the actual phone message which he introduces. We'll probably use that next. And then I think we'll probably end with like an extra. And then the music is going to be in there in both spots, so we'll have a different track lane for the music and put it at the beginning and the end. And so just kind of throw things in the sequence in the audio editing software, and then there might be some other further adjustments. For example, the host is going to be, I think it's built into the sound effects file. If I remember correctly, when I recorded the sound effects, I used the internal microphones on my R1 and I held it up in the air. And then when I went to record Shelley,
Me?
yes?
Jennifer,
pardon me, sorry. What I did is I just, without turning off my unit, I just plugged in my external microphone. So it'll be on the same file. And then, so there might be a little bit more slicing and dicing and moving around. But roughly everything is going to be slotted into the right spots.
So what program was it that you used to convert that file to an MP3?
I use something called a Sound Converter, which is a free tool for Macs. I don't know if there's a PC version or not. And what's nice is it's just drag and drop. You have your defaults. I like my MP3s to have these parameters. You just drop the file on it, and it comes out the other end as an MP3. You don't even think about it.
iTunes will do it too.
From GSM?
Not from GSM.
Yeah, I don't know. But iTunes, yes, you're right, it will convert files. But I try not to do any work in iTunes. Honestly, there's tagging, we'll go into the tagging and all that stuff. I really try not to do anything in iTunes because I find iTunes a pain in the ass. I really do. Yes.
So you just mentioned before iTunes, another software that you use for converting MP3.
Sound Converter.
Sorry?
Sound Converter.
Sound Converter, which is this guy right here.
The nice thing about the open source community, unlike some of the major software companies, is they actually name their software packages with something that's relevant, like Sound Converter, which is really handy.
For PC, for an MP3 converter file, is there a free download of something you can use for that?
Convert to MP3?
Yeah.
From what?
From another file.
Like
it's a WAV file.
A WAV file, yeah, there's Lane, which is, we actually use with Audacity as well. LAME it's actually just a file that has the engine to convert. We need to put a front end in front of it, but there's something called Razor Lane, which is a nice front end to it. And it gives you kind of that drag and drop feeling. You just, which file do you want to convert? This one. To what? This.
What is
Razor Lane. I haven't used it in a long time, actually, but since I switched to Mac.
Can you add into that list of tech links?
Well, iTunes on a PC, you convert a WAV to
Actually, iTunes has a decent MP3 encoder. I find it bloats the MP3s a little bit. Same with GarageBand. They're Apple encoders. They're good, but the files are a little bit bloated. By that I mean that if you use, well, I haven't used Cubase to edit my stuff, and when I export in an MP3, it might be a few K smaller than the same file in iTunes. No, it's even the same bitrate. I've done comparisons, and I've done it with Wavelab, with Cubase, with there's another one I can't remember, and with iTunes. And iTunes consistently came higher than all the other packages.
Can it make a difference for your recording devices when it comes to the editing process? Do you use like the R1, the H2, or all the different things that are coming in the audio file? Does it make a difference in terms of what device you use to record when it comes to the editing process?
The only difference would be that because the devices are different, the audio might sound different.
Well, the microphones,
but they're standard files. So.
Besides the audio file, is it actually
No, it's a WAV file is a WAV file, and MP3 is an MP3. So you can just bring it in. So
actually, Bob,
Get dry.
I do actually find there's a difference encoding with Lame and with iTunes. We used to do it with Lame out of Audacity, and we tried it with the MP3 converter in iTunes, and there was an audible difference.
It sounded better?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So just, I mean, I don't know if that's...
But that's the audio software. That's not necessarily the digital.
Yeah, not necessarily the
no, we just go back to
original
the
format,
encoder,
but...
the encoder.
Because we record in WAV,
okay.
And then when we process it into an MP3, we were using Lame out of Audacity.
Okay.
But then we had some artifacts and things like that, and then we tried it in iTunes, and Mark's probably right, it does bloat it a little bit, but not enough to make a huge difference. The sound quality is noticeably better, at least for our ears.
You know it's the same?
Yeah, I just started doing I was mixing down in Audacity using Lame, and now that I've used iTunes, there was something in my vocal was driving me nuts, and that made the difference.
Well, maybe they're doing something with the frequencies. And when I say it's bloated, I'm not saying that there's a huge difference. But if you're dealing with a 1 hour MP3 file versus a 20-minute MP3 file, if you're dealing with a 1 hour thing, the drift or that bloating is going to increase exponentially over time.
Everybody understand the difference between a WAV and MP3? That's pretty technical, but I don't want to get too much into it. A WAV file is raw, uncompressed audio, right? Those 44.1 times per second, there's a snapshot and it's all there. MP3 is a huge file. That's a lot of data you're trying to keep, and that ends up being really big files. Now, MP3...
Compare the file size.
Compare the file size. If we look at... well, actually... okay, Brogan WAV is... let me convert it to MP3. We'll see what it is.
Well, no. But even compare a recording, just two different files. But now you're not using... You're using different MP3 settings than I am using.
Yeah, so...
so the group MP3 was...
So the group MP3, he recorded for... I didn't say how long. Oh, yeah.
1 minute.
A minute, and it's
just under 1 minute.
2K, okay? If you look at this WAV file...
Cuddly Bunny, which is...
It's 14
seconds, and it's 2.4 megs.
And it's twice the size. So to get to MP3 from WAV, there's a compression. And an MP3 is a lossy compression, and I'm not going to get too technical about it, but the whole idea behind MP3 is it throws out what it thinks you won't hear. If there's a cymbal crash, and there's somebody going at the same time, it thinks you can't hear that, so it'll take it out. That's really it. It's an adaptive, lossy compression. So keep enough so that you can tell what it is, but
when you're dealing with spoken word, MP3 is okay. But when you're dealing with music, if you're going to record a CD, you're not going to record it in MP3. You might mix to MP3 so that the world population can consume it easily and with a small footprint, which is 1 meg per minute roughly. But when you're recording music, you're going to want the highest bit rate possible, the highest audio quality, something that you can work with. If you're dealing with audio, recording an audio podcast, is it going to kill you to record in MP3 format, just the voice? Probably not.
So my point was really the difference between the iTunes sound and the Lame sound that you guys brought up is that it's two different engines to throw out. They're both deciding to throw out different things. And what they throw out makes the Lame maybe sound harsher, and maybe the iTunes encoder doesn't throw out as much, or it throws out different things to give it that smoother sound. So that's really the difference. But they're both still valid MP3 files. So just,
and that stuff you got to experiment with. And the old story, whenever you're doing your podcast, you're doing an audio podcast, listen to it on your speakers, listen to it on headphones, and listen to it on an iPod. Get an idea of what it sounds like in all the different formats.
But the earbuds is the key one.
Yeah,
because
that's the main one.
The earbuds especially, because that's the one where you're going to be walking, people walk down the street, or they listen to it on the bus, or whatever, and if you can do one favor for your listeners, if you can do one thing for them only, that is make sure that your levels are not too different. In music, it's good to have dynamics. You always want to have that, although in the music industry now, they've actually managed to kill that. But when you're walking down the street and you're listening to traffic and you have to crank, or you're listening to traffic, you're listening to a podcast next to traffic, you have to crank it sometimes to actually hear what people are saying or hear what's going on in the podcast. And then if you play a phone-in segment, and that phone-in segment has volume that's twice as loud as what somebody's been listening to, they're going to go deaf, or their ears are going to hurt.
And they're going to unsubscribe.
And if it happens too often, they will unsubscribe. So at the it's good to have dynamics. It's good to have a high ceiling and a low ceiling of where your audio is going to fit. But make sure that they're not so, make sure you're not dealing with everything from -30 to -1, which is, Bob will show you a bit more about that when he's doing his editing. He'll make sure that the levels are in the dynamic range.
Okay.
Why don't we go right to editing then?
Okay, yeah. So this is Audacity, the screen behind this part. And that is the first screen you get when you get there. So you'll see at the top left, tape recorder buttons, your stop, your play, your record. You have your editing tools, more shortcut buttons, and you have that big line under here, those are actually your levels. And you can change all this. You can change the layout so it fits your liking. This is how I've come to like mine. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take all that audio we recorded and we're going to toss it into Audacity. So now you might start to get an idea of why I renamed everything first. Because the file name is this tiny little box up here. So if it just said RE0001928, you lose track of what it is really quickly.
You just don't like my audio recorder.
I don't. I really don't.
And if you're getting bands sending you music, tell them to please label their MP3s so you don't get a bunch of track one.
Yes.
And then you have no clue who it is, and especially if you don't know the band. 5 track ones, you'll have no idea what's going on.
Okay, so it's done. I'm going to squish this down. And so there's all our audio.
So hold on, we should explain for people who are unfamiliar with what multi-track software is. Each one of these double lanes is a stereo audio file. So here we have group 1, so it's a stereo audio file, left and right. And we have group 2, left and right. Fake out, so that's the song. So now what you can actually, if Bob were to hit play right now, all of these things that begin at the exact same moment and end at different times, at least for the very first exact 15 seconds, everything's going to play all at once. So it's like a scene out of Top Gun or something. So what Bob is going to do is he puts the show together, is he's going to move all these different pieces into different places so that they all occur at the right times. They'll fire at the same time, if you like. And he'll use the audio mixer to mix how much volume is present in each one of those at any given time.
Now, if you were recording a show not like we did here today, if you just had that one piece of audio where you just ramble on, and then you just want to take out, you know what, I shouldn't have said that about my sister-in-law. I'll take that out, and then I'll put my show together. You would only have one set of these blue bars, right? You'd have that, and you'd just go highlight what you don't want, delete it, that reference I made is gone, I can make my MP3 now, and off I go. So that, if you're just alone with the mic, it's going to be a lot simpler a screen than what you see here. It gets more complicated because we split up the audio. It gets more complicated because we've added theme music that wasn't on our main track. It gets more complicated because instead of having, a puzzle with 3 pieces, we have a puzzle with 9 pieces. So it's just a question of arranging the puzzle pieces. Now they're all on the table now. Now we just have to line them up where we want them to be.
Your music would typically be a separate channel, though, wouldn't it? Because you don't play your music and then record and then play your outro, do you?
It Depends.
If you
Depends how
play
you
it
record
live.
it. I do a show where it's me and a buddy having a few beers talking about life, and we do it like live to radio. So we're just sitting there, hit play, music plays, okay, bring it in, and then we talk. So it's all live, it's all on one track. Now this one, we're gonna make it sound that way, but by using a separate track just for the song.
When you produce a weekly show, do you have a shell that you start with? It's like intro, outro, and
I used to.
blanks, or
I used to for the weekly shows, like for Buffet, I used to do that, and then it just became. It was as much work to do that anyways, and.
Because each production is unique, so even though the only thing that's really consistent in each week's show is the theme music.
Yeah.
But the intro we record uniquely each week, and so it really doesn't add anything to have that shell of a show. We know in our heads how everything looks, and this is the amazing thing about working in the digital world now. When I think about recording a show, Bob and I are talking, I literally see in my head, instead of playing Tetris and get addicted, and you see these things falling down all the time. I literally see in my head these waveforms on different track lanes. It's like I'm editing in advance. Okay, this is going to be here. This is going to be here. Bob said that. Okay, I got to remember. I got to take that in about his sister-in-law and all these other things. And then in my head, the show is complete, which is always really frustrating because when you go to bed, they're just off to edit the show the next day.
So what have you just done now? Because you're highlighting files.
I'm just highlighting. I'm just playing because I was mentally deciding how I was going to go about this. Because what I could do is if I had nicely tightly, it's a lot of little lines. If I had a whole bunch of nicely wrapped pieces of audio that start exactly at the right spot and exactly at the right spot, I could go and line up my puzzle pieces right now, and it'd be fine. The fact is that almost every piece of audio we have has stuff we don't want before, maybe during, and then after. So we're going to have to go through track by track and fix it.
Have fun.
Yes. Thanks, Mark.
All
right, so
why don't we all go out for a coffee?
You know what? I think you'll forgive me if I don't do it 100%. But the first thing I want to show you is this is a track. The first thing, we'll look at fake out because that's what we're starting with. I can decide if I want it to play just on the.
Okay, when you say track, but we should qualify. It's basically just an audio event. It's a group. It's something that's taking place in the sequence in the audio that appears on its own. In its own space, so Bob can treat it separately from everything else.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say that.
Think of it like you have a stack of CD players, and I'm going to work on this CD now. So what I'm going to do is I only want to hear, before I hit play, we heard everything kick off at the same time. I only want to hear the one I'm working on, so I'm going to click solo. And that means that if I hit play now, all I'm going to hear is the CD. Good. So if I look at the other controls I have left and right. I can just send it to one side. Yeah, just like our stereo at home. I can also control the level, the volume, the gain, more verbally. Okay.
So if you wanted to turn that down, say on the left side, talking over it on the right side, you can do that.
No, because this won't let me fly. It won't record when I'm doing it left and right. That's just it's a static setting. I either want all left or all right or just a bit. So it won't record the fact that I'm sliding over. Some software will do that. More complicated software will do that. But you bring up a good point, is what we're going to want is, we're going to want talking over that intro music.
Right.
So if I just pick talk, like if I was to start talking here, like the music is playing, and then the talking starts, what hasn't happened is the music hasn't got out of the way.
Right.
The music has to come down so the guy, hey, welcome to the show!
That's really important to know. It's always better to take things down than to add things on top. So if you have a host, don't have your audio, your music at the intro running at a certain level the whole way through, and then try and overpower it with the host speaking. People talk about EQing and trying to find the frequency range that you really want to hear and emphasizing it. Well, how about taking the frequency ranges you don't want to hear and taking them down? So remove stuff before you add stuff.
All right, the process of moving the music out of the way is called ducking. And you think about it, out of the way, something's coming. So ducking. So this is your ducking tool right here, your envelope tool. And what is that? That is a model. This is going to get technical, okay? So
stick with us. We're here to support you.
And stop me if I'm going too fast. The envelope tool, what it does is an envelope, you can squeeze things back and forth. So in this case, volume. So I can bring the volume down and back up without changing the main volume over here of the track. So what I can do with an envelope tool, I click over here, and I say, well, see, it becomes these two little arrows here. That blue line at the top and at the bottom, that's the whole range of that music. So you have the softer passage over
The
here.
amplitude.
And you have that. You have the intro over here, which is a bit softer, and the guitars come in, and that's really how, like your level meters on your stereo and stuff. So what I want to do is I want to give it a starting point where it's going to turn down. So let's see. And you kind of have that feel if you listen to radio or TV or anything like that. The music will play for a bit, and then it just feels right. It should come down here.
In radio terms, you might have heard it, it's called a post. So it's almost like there might be a drum fill. And it just feels right that that's where the speaking is going to be.
Right, so in this case, and I'm not going to...
So it might be with music like this, you might have the host at the very beginning saying something like, "Welcome to hiding in the closet," over that intro music. Then the voice would disappear, the music would continue, and then they'd hit that drum fill going into the main song, and then the music would come down, and your host would go, "Hey, welcome to the show today, we have a great show to you," blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, or simpler, the music starts, moves out of the way, the intro, and that's the intro. So let's go with the simpler one because we're gonna be here all the time. Yeah. So the music starts. See, that's already a great intro because that drum beat makes you want to hear more. Hey, there's energy here. There's something going to happen here. Okay, now how do I maintain that energy? If my host was going, "Welcome to the hiding in the closet," forget it, right? So you want to match that energy. Like, she didn't hear the music first, so obviously you didn't build on that. But if you hear the theme music, "Hey, welcome to hiding in the closet."
Well, and that's the advantage of doing something live sometimes. If you're going to do your intro, sometimes it doesn't hurt to have the music playing if you have the multi-track software to hear it in your ears while you're doing your intro because you'll pick up on that energy.
So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that where the guitar comes in, it would be a nice place for the music to duck out of the way. Okay, there it is. So I now mark my spot. Not mark, but mark on the board. And you'll see that it's gone and put, I don't know if you can see it. You see they put little white dots there?
Yeah.
So that's like my starting point for this envelope tool. It's going to change based on what happens now. Well, I've left my blue lines where they are. So if I was to move that white dot down, and now if I play that track, oh, it's much softer now. Okay, we're closer to where we want to be. We're softer, but we want it loud, then soft. So if I bring this back up, what I can do is I can make another spot over here. I took it right out. If I make my initial spot here, and now I've put a second set of markers in there. And what that does is the first one now acts as an anchor. Okay, up until that point it's going to stay there, and I click on the second one. Do you get that when I'm squeezing I'm really lowering the volume? That's really that's how, and that's not an Audacity thing, that's almost any audio editing software. That's your volume. So now if we go back and listen to this, you guys bored?
No.
No? Good. Down. Now I can have host person speaking. Is it down enough yet? Well, I don't think it is, but
you don't really know until you have.
We won't know until we have that audio. So we're done. Our intro is done. We don't know when it ends yet, but that's okay. We don't know when our intro ends yet. So we've done what we can to this track.
There is a trick in GarageBand that does this basically automatically, right?
But auto ducking, you have to be very careful because auto ducking will base it on a threshold. So if you start to talk, it'll go, "Oh, okay, you're exceeding the threshold," and it brings the music down. But then if you stop and take a breath that's too long for the threshold, then suddenly you have the music go, "Whoop," and then come back down. So the auto ducking you have to be very careful with because you want it to stay down for as long as the host is going to be doing their voiceover. And if they do stop to collect their thoughts or pause for effect, that the auto ducking doesn't say, "Oh, they've stopped talking now, bring it back out."
So you can end up in a situation like that, right? Where,
yeah.
"Hi, my name is Fred." Dramatic pause. Music comes back up out of nowhere, and you hear that on radio all the time. Actually, where those morning zoo shows where they have that plate spinning music going on in the background, and then when they stop their fake laughter, the music comes back up. Then they start again. The traffic girl, whatever. That's automatic ducking, and it can really, you know what? It fills for when you didn't do what you wanted to do. And I'm not a big fan of it because it's...
Daryl Cognito actually, who used to do the Pod Dog show, tried auto ducking for a show and then realized he couldn't use it anymore because it really did when he stopped. It filled in the spaces when he stopped all the time.
Just out of curiosity, is there a version of that in Audacity?
But auto ducking, you have to be very careful because you want it to stay down for as long as the host is going to be doing their voiceover. And if they do stop to collect their thoughts or pause for effect, that the auto ducking doesn't say, "Oh, they've stopped talking now, bring it back out." So
The automatic ducking?
No.
I don't think so.
No, I looked.
If you're a
well,
programmer,
actually,
this is a great opportunity for
There is actually.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's in the beta.
This is it.
Oh, is that right? Oh, yeah.
We're running 1.3.4, I think, so. 1.3.3.
Beta.
Yeah, I'm like that. I save often.
Well, that's another thing, by the way. Save your editing often.
All right, so we've just blown 10 minutes making our intro music, so this would be a good time to save. You're right. Pause it. Sure. Okay, so now it makes it all into a file that you can use later on, and you can not worry about it. Okay. So we hit solo. You notice all the other ones got grayed out when I hit solo. That means all I'm hearing is that track. Anyways. So now I don't want to hear this one anymore, so I will not only unsolo it, I'll mute it. I'm done with it. I don't need to hear it until I'm ready to actually put my show together. So now I'm going to move on, and we'll edit all the different sections. Okay, so now what you can also do is squeeze it out of the way. So it's just like word processing or whatever. I'm going to squeeze this part out of the way here. I don't need to see it. I'm going to unsolo it and mute it. So now it's great. It's out of my mind. The binaurals, was there anything useful for that?
No, that was a demonstration.
All right, so I'm going to mute that, or I'll get rid of it.
Yeah.
I can always bring it back, so I'll just get rid of that.
These, by the way, these audio files, we can maybe, when we do the buffet next week, we'll figure out some way so that you can hear what all these different source audio recordings sounded like.
Yeah.
And then you can make your own show.
These numbers here, my pointer is, that's time, right? So 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds. That song is 2 minutes long. You see it's scrolling off the right side. If I go up here, there's a zoom button, plus and minus. So if I zoom out, now I have the whole 3 minute, 30 second song there. And it also gives me an idea of where my things are. I know that the call comes towards the end of the show. So, because of my show notes and my layout that I've done. So I'm just going to use this tool here, which is the slider. And that moves events in time. Yeah.
Earlier on, when you said that you changed the name of the files, would it be useful to do, like, for this opening music, have a 1 in front of it, and then the next piece of file that you're going to use a 2 in front of it?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
In order?
That's a good idea. Yeah. I've done that where I've had, like, if I go to a meetup or an event like this and I record, like, just comments, random comments from, like, 14 different people, I'll do that. I'll rename them that way and in the order I want to use them. But it doesn't sort based on that. That's just, if I see the call 1 should rather be out here, I can just click it and drag it down, and I've moved it down too.
Okay.
So you can really, it's all about, none of that organization affects how it sounds or how it's put together. It's really, how do you want it? How do you want it sorted? So I'm going to bring the call, actually I'll leave the call there for now. So this tool here is the time shift tool. So if I look at this call, we'll see that the audio pretty much starts at 0. If I look at my timeline up there, it goes to about 20-something seconds. You guys all see that? Right up here? So I know it's going to happen later in the show. So I just click and I hold down and I slide it off to the right. Now if I hit play, it's going to take 2.5 minutes before I hear that piece of audio. And that's how you shift things around. That's how you're putting, now we're starting to look at how the pieces of the puzzle are going to fit together. What else we have? We have the cuddly bunny sound. This is a group 2, so let's go listen to that.
Oh, and actually in the group 2, when you look at it, there's a number of different areas of the waveform that you can tell right away. Well, it's either quiet here for some reason and then noisy here.
I'm not used to having 2 screens.
Okay. So up here, so when we did that, okay. So these parts here are going obviously quite loud. Now when we recorded, when I had the audio recorder up in the air, I find it very hard to believe that was those spots, but maybe I'm inclined to think that that's where I might have recorded the host. I don't know.
Do you see how we think there's more volume there, obviously, right? There's more going on. So
that's where I probably had the microphone right in front of Jennifer, because they'll have so much more.
So let's pick this apart. We're not worried about what time it starts at right now. Let's just solo it. Everything else grays out, and we're going to listen to this track. Sean, you had something to say?
How did you move the whole block of audio?
I click on the track here, and that selects the whole thing. And then I use the time shift tool, which is the arrows like this, and I just click down and I do this.
In 3 years, I've never known I could do that.
See, somebody's been podcasting for 3 years, just learning something new about it.
Thanks, Sean, for validating me. I like that. All right, so let's listen to this. So I'll click here, and this is the cursor tool, right? This is like you have your Word or whatever. If I want to, if you're editing a document, same idea. This is not about Audacity. If I want to just select this part, I click down, I hold it, I drag. I'll select just that part. If I want to put my cursor here, I just click once. And now my timer is there. You see it up here. You guys get that, right? That's just your position where you are. If I click here and I hit play, it's going to start playing from there.
What's your name?
Okay. That sounded obscene.
What's your name, little girl? Tell Uncle Mark where it hurts.
All right. All right, so let's listen to this audio and see what it says before this gets more awkward.
What's your name and what's your favorite part of Podcamp Toronto? My name is Chris, and my favorite part is talking to you right now and playing out with my radio voice and having some fun.
So when we do the call-in segment, where it'll obviously be a collage of all these different comments, to which Jennifer did the introduction. We've spoken to some parents, and what's the best part of hiding in the closet. We'll probably go right in where it says, "Hi, my name is Chris," and I mean, it sounds totally ridiculous because it's not about hiding in the closet, but it's kind of funny.
Okay, so let's isolate that. That's a piece of audio we want. So where the line is right now is where that section ends. So I'm going to do edit and split. And what that does, strangely enough, is split the audio. So if I go back to my shifter tool here and I click here, now I'm moving the rest away. Okay? So now all I have is that Mark really sounded like a creepy guy and the answer to the question.
What's your name and what's your favorite?
Okay, and it goes to the end.
Yeah, that's fine.
Having some fun. Thank you.
Okay, good. So now we can tighten that up some more. So
you
now
want to take me out?
Yes.
Yes.
I know, the audio. So now we want to work on this piece, but it's kind of tiny, right? So we'll zoom in on it. Now we'll give ourselves some room to work. And I think Mark ends pretty much around here.
Toronto. My name is Chris.
Okay, so you see where the shape changes right around here? That's where Mark stops talking. So I will select that part and delete it. I hit the delete key.
How do you know, like, what do you do when it's a really close edit?
You zoom in more. So if I undo what I've just done here, if I wasn't really sure, I could just zoom in, and you can go, see?
Right down to these little bit levels.
I've got 3 seconds now on my screen. I now have 0.1 second of audio.
This is where
so
actually...
you can really make it, you can get in there with a razor blade.
And with recording audiobooks, very often if you make a mistake, you can just go back, and audio is actually just about as cut and pasteable as text if you watch your tone as you're reading or as you're speaking. And a good way to, especially with audiobooks, is if you make a mistake, correct it right then, because you can make it seamless.
This is where the difference between MP3 and WAV can make a difference. Because when you talk about a technical term like sample accuracy, which is getting down to that 44.1 times that something is sampled, the WAV will give you that much more information and will make a cut at this minuscule point a lot more easy to do.
Are we scaring you guys about podcasting?
No.
Just want to make sure, because we're going in deep here, right? And if you thought podcasting, it's the media of the people, it's so easy, and shit!
Well, hold on. I think we need to come back to this idea that the way we've done this show is the most complicated way you will ever do a podcast.
But I don't want to scare anybody away either, you know? We can make a really simple podcast. No, so don't feel bad.
And it allows us also, by using this complicated method of doing a podcast, it allows you to see, oh, this is how you change the gain on the music. This is how you move a piece of audio to a different spot. This is how you do a splice. This is how you make it all fit together. We could sit up here at the front of the room and record a show beginning to end and leave all the mistakes in, put some music in the front and end, and publish it, and that's a podcast in the very same sense. What we want to do, though, is we want to give you the tools to understand a little bit more about how to do something that's in podcasting.
So we'll go on this way, but it doesn't have to be this hard. This is just my point.
The more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
What's your opinion on programs like Levelator for doing this kind of stuff?
Levelator is a neat program. I like what it does, but Levelator is a program where it takes audio that's not all recorded at the same level, and it'll squeeze it together to make it smooth. The idea is that you want audio to not have jarring differences in volume for your listeners.
Huge dynamic range.
Yeah, so you want to be able to listen to everybody talk and then not have somebody scream out of the middle of nowhere. So they're turning it up to hear you, and all of a sudden you scream in their head, and they wish evil things on you. So Levelator is a compressor tool which will make things more even sounding. What I don't like about Levelator is you end up having, with any compression, is you'll end up with pumping sound. If there's breathing, it doesn't know that breathing from a word. So if you have somebody who's talking, and it's a really moving piece of audio. I remember when my grandfather died. Well, that's not a word, but the program doesn't know. So it's going to make that as loud as the. I remember the. You listen to that, you can get distracted. Now you can scale it back, but if you scale it back, you don't get as much of the benefit from it.
Actually, Levelator doesn't allow you to make those changes. It
doesn't?
No, it's drag and drop.
Okay, so I've noticed pumping with Levelator, and I think it's a very cool tool, and if your audio overall is okay, it can probably help.
And it's free.
It's free.
It's free.
And the guys behind it are good guys. So.
Is that a program you can use further to my earlier question about phone conversations where they're uneven?
Yeah,
I would try it, sure.
It would help in that situation.
You don't have to use it, right? Like, if you have a piece of audio that's from a phone and you're not thrilled with it,
well, I mean,
try
two
it.
people, one end is high and one's low.
It might or might not. It depends how quickly it reacts. I don't know.
It's not bad. It does do some prediction. So in that particular case, it would be good. I don't like using Levelator only because a lot of people who use it will use it for a long show. So if you have a 1 hour show to listen to and somebody's levelated that 1 hour show, your ears will be tired after that 1 hour. If it's a 5-minute segment on a show, like a phone call, a 5-minute, 10-minute phone interview where you're really trying to balance disparate levels, yeah, it makes sense there. But if you do it on a full hour, if you've ever been to a rock concert and you come out and your ears are tired afterwards, that's the same deal.
Sure.
When the Revelator came out, I used it very extensively on almost everything I used. But after a while, first issue was one button, drag and drop, you get what you get. And I noticed that sometimes with wide disparities, I get dropouts occasionally with Levelator. And the dropouts were really annoying to me. The second thing was, as I got better at manipulating audio, I wanted that control. But in a case like a phone interview, which I do a fair bit of, as a last resort, I just can't make these two sound right. Then I pull it out as the last thing in my back pocket.
Or maybe we should continue with the editing.
All right, so
see how it all fits together. How are we doing for time, Rob? We're probably blowing it in.
No, we got
8 minutes.
3/4 of an hour.
Okay,
for editing and recording?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Libsyn was supposed to start at 4.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Good.
So
So
you only have
we'll
45
be able
minutes
to piece this
to do this,
together.
Then I go to your hair. All right, so.
How did you do that split again?
My name is...
Oh, sure. So the split, basically, if I have a piece of audio I want to split up, I have the cursor tool here, the one that's like a bar. I just click anywhere, and then I go Edit, Split, or Command-I, or Apple-I, or depending on what platform you're on. It looks exactly the same on a PC, by the way, except that it's Control-I, or Alt-I instead of yeah.
When you split new, the one that's below that, do you just create a new track?
Yeah, see, here, I'll do it. Here, this is marked up one. So if I do there, if I do split new, it'll actually create a different track. It's supposed to.
think you have to select a range for it to do that.
No, use that one, motion. Boop. Yeah, and then see it's gone and slapped it down here.
And so what's the advantage of doing that?
The advantage
is you still want to use that piece of audio, but not there.
Or if you want to treat it separately. Let's say in that case you had Mark's part, and then you had the answer. Mark's part was, you can't hear it, the other guy's, well, maybe I want to use a different effect to bring Mark's voice to prominence. So I can do different effects easier if I have them split up. It's also just as a way to organize the files, the clips. What I'm going to do for this, though, I'm going to split it up. I'm going to keep the audio clips on the same track just to make our life easier, or my life easier. So now,
can't do that.
What's your favorite part of Podcamp Toronto? My name is Chris.
Okay, so I go here. I'm not getting too picky about it. Delete it. So now if I come here and I hit play.
My name is Chris, and my favorite part is talking to you right now and playing out with my radio voice and having some fun. Thank you.
Okay, so I can take out that. And here's something I do that, I don't know if you do this, Mark, or not. I'll take that extra piece of audio out. Now, ears don't like sudden changes or sudden endings. So if I play this,
having some fun.
Plug up, pull, that's what that audio ends. What I like doing for clips, just it makes it smoother. He stops talking here, and then there's some background noise, and it disappears abruptly. I will highlight this, and I will do a fade out. And I don't know if it's going to be that obvious. If I do that on all my clips. Oops. Bring it out.
Voice and having some fun.
You guys see the difference?
Yeah.
It's not abrupt, but if you're doing something at a train station, and all of a sudden you're there, your listener's listening, and you're there with your guy, and there's 200 people in the train station, and they're all gone. Have it fade away.
Yeah, even the shortest fade out can make a huge difference.
Can you control how much it fades out?
Well, fade out by definition fades out to the end, right? Well, you can decide how long it's going to be by where you start the fade out.
Well, there's also different software packages handle things differently. Like I guess Audacity gives you that it's a linear fade out. Some programs will actually let you shape the way it fades out.
Yeah.
It might be an elliptical curve. It might be a linear fade out. And if you have a crossfade, for example, you might be able to say, well, I want this one to come out really fast, while this one fades out really slowly. So there's more flexibility in different packages.
Yeah, do what I did. Oh, here it is. So now we have this piece of audio.
My name is Chris, and my favorite part is talking to you right now.
Okay, so we have that. Now I could take that and make it its own track and label it Chris, and that'd be all nice and easy. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to go and isolate, so we'll have our 3 bricks on the same line.
So maybe while you do that, talk a little bit more about editing. Do people want Bob to explain how he does this again?
I'm going to run through the same thing again. Let's do it quicker. How's that? Okay, so this is now the piece of audio I want to work on. First, listen.
What is your name, and what's your favorite part of Podcamp Toronto? Hi, I'm Bill Dees, and my favorite part is meeting with everybody that I know and meeting new people. And that was the best audio I've ever heard.
All right, so
if you're a listener of Canadian Podcast Buffet, that's a long-running gag now. I think it's been 3 weeks.
So this one's it's unfortunate because there's a couple of P-pops in there, and you can see them pretty clearly, right? Every time you right here, there's 3 of those P-pops, and we'll have to do our best to fix that, and we'll be able to do something useful with that. First thing I'm going to do is split it up, and then I can move it and just concentrate on that piece of audio. I'm going to zoom in, and right over here so I see it. And now I'm going to pick the part where I take Mark out. I'm pretty sure I know what it is just looking at it.
Hi, I'm Bill Dees.
Alright, so I know it's that. And I will take this out. Now, fading out at the end, for that abrupt start, if you have a scene or a clip that has a lot of background noise, fading in is a good idea as well. So that it's not out of nowhere you get 500 people showing up. But usually it doesn't matter as much. It's the letting go that's harder than the letting go is harder. I'm going to sing. Okay, so here's Bill.
And that was the best audio I've ever heard.
We'll probably use that, for at least for the purpose of this.
Everybody that I know and meeting new people.
Okay, new people.
It is a great piece of audio. We will use it on the buffet no doubt. this show.
All right, so I'm going to do my little fade out thingy. All right. I'm going to fix it right now.
So that was under effects.
No, and meeting new people.
Do fade out. So I did effect fade out. I highlighted where the fade out was going to be, and then did effect fade out. I'm going to fix those peepops. Well, at least I'm going to try. Now you see, when you zoom in, you can really tell that those peepops, if I just highlight and play this section.
People.
There's different ways to fix this. What I like doing is I like using a limiter. Now, ideally, there would have been a limiter ahead of time when it was recorded. It's always easy, you always say, oh, we can fix it in the mix.
Actually, there was a limiter on that because it was on the high microphone setting. It hit the ceiling of the limiter, so it didn't get the distortion. You can still hear that P clearly, but it didn't get into digital artifacts and cracks.
Right.
But you'll see, actually, I'm sure my limiter is probably set to like minus 0.5. And if you were to zoom in enough, you'd probably see that it hits the absolute ceiling of the audio.
Yeah. So all I'm going to do to fix this is I'm going to limit it at, now this is, it could be technical, you can use, if you're using GarageBand, you can do something like compression or things like that. Limiting, what limiting does is it says, I don't want anything louder than minus 10. Why did I choose minus 10? Because this whole part here, in fact, I stopped it playing, it was playing out here, and you can see way up here, it remembers where I was. I was around minus 10. That's where my volume was. And I'm just ballparking it now. My average volume was around there. So I'd like to bring these guys in line with that, is what I'm trying to do.
Without bringing
so
everything else up.
So we'll still hear the sound of the peepop, but your eardrums won't actually touch anymore. So by setting a limiter, this is a limiter plugin, I said, listen, at minus 10 I want you to turn on, and the most you can go, the highest you can possibly go with your ceiling is minus 10. So I'll do that right here, hopefully it'll work. Boom. So you see now those jagged lines are gone.
It'll still peak a bit.
It'll still peak a bit. Now let's listen to it. Remember how bad it sounded, right? Well, or remember how it sounded.
Hi, I'm Bill Lees, and my favorite part is meeting with everybody that I know and meeting new people.
Okay, it's still there. A lot better, right? You don't get
and you also didn't affect the rest of the audio. You didn't bring everything else up so it was so loud, and you didn't crush anything else down, because Bob focused on that minus 10 range. So everything here is cut off at minus 10. You can see you probably draw a straight line right there. But he also does not crush anything else because nothing else got to the point.
So you used another piece of software to do that, is that right?
No, it's a plugin. It's an effect that you can download from the net. Or in this case, it was just, yeah, it's just called a limiter. But there's a limiter function. On Windows, you get different effects than you do on.
Well, there's leveler.
There's leveler. Yeah, there's a leveler effect which will do the same thing.
So leveler is the one that's built into
Capacity? Yeah. Let's see what if I do a leveler on this. What a leveler does, though. Okay, leveler is like levelator. We were talking about levelator before. This is the exact same thing. So how moderate? Well, let's see. Lights. Let's leave it at light. See what it does. See what
it brought everything else up too.
It doesn't know that the loud part is what I want to get rid of. It says, oh, this is too low. So it tries to bring it up. So if I did a leveler again, but more drastic, let's say moderate. Boom. Now it just sees one is bigger than the other. I have to make them the same. I'll bring this one up.
This is a great example. Before I was talking about taking stuff away before you add stuff. What it's doing is it's set a ceiling here for all the loud stuff, and it's gradually bringing everything else up to catch up with the loud stuff. So instead of bringing the P's down, which you've done just in a very light sense, you're bringing everything else up. So now everything's going to be amazingly loud. So when the P's pop, everything's going to be just at the same level.
So yeah, so you haven't fixed the problem. You've just made everything else bad.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut up too much on that because I'm going to lose you, and the coffee is not strong enough to keep you going through all this. So I'm going to redo my thing here, and know that you trust me implicitly that this sounds great. I'm going to move on to the next piece of audio. Is that it? Or is 2 enough?
Well, I mean, 2 is enough for those were with the H2. You might want to grab something that I use the dynamic handheld microphone. Oh, that's probably the crowd. That might be, what is that?
Watch.
Oh, no.
Podcamp Toronto.
My name is Elizabeth O'Grady, and my favorite part of Podcamp Toronto is the 0 to podcast.
Okay, maybe my limiter isn't on.
So you see what happened there? Did you hear that? That is clipping. I think no matter what happens here, I'm going to try the adage is garbage in, garbage out, right? You cannot fix, if it wasn't able to record properly, it might not be savable.
My name's Elizabeth O'Grady, and my favorite part of Podcamp Toronto is the Zero to Podcast session.
So you can hear that's actually distorting.
It's better, obviously, but it's still not great. But we'll leave it. All right, so I know that she starts speaking there, and I'll take out Mark here. There we go. And it looks like she stopped speaking here.
Ah, yes. My limiter was, I installed a new firmware for this, and the limiter came off.
All right, so I'm going to take out the other one. The machine room we don't need. Where's our host? Our host is on the same one as Brogan, you think?
Cuddly Bunny, isn't it?
No, it's but Cuddly Bunny has some of the host on it, and then there's another host file too.
All right, so question. Cuddly Bunny, where's Cuddly Bunny? Where's Cuddly Bunny? So I will mute this now. And we're trying to find Cuddly Bunny.
All right.
All right, Cuddly Bunny on 3. Beautiful. All right. All right, so we got Cuddly Bunny there. This will be. Take that out. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing to Cuddly Bunny as I did to the. I believe I'm talking about Cuddly Bunny. I'm doing the same thing Cuddly Bunny I did to the other things. I'm cleaning it up, getting only what I want. And in this case, I'm actually going to make it louder because it's really low. And do that. So now, here's my Cuddly Bunny. Not good? Music to my ears. All right. So there's the Cuddly Bunny. Now we have to find our host.
What is the solo button?
The solo button means that you're just going to hear that one track. For example, I can mute the tracks, and these are the same buttons as you have on a mixer, like like a studio mixer or a music mixer or something.
Grab the mic, Bob. Grab the mic.
Grab the mic. Thank you. So the mute button will gray it out, so you won't hear it. The solo button means that I could, like if I have 10 tracks, if I want to hear just one, I could mute 9 of them. Or I could solo one track, and that would be the only track I hear. I don't know why I walked over there to say that, but it just seemed like a good idea at the time. So you see, the blue ones are the ones that I'm going to hear. If I hit solo here, the others have all grayed out. And that's the idea. So you're soloing it like a solo instrument. And that's where you hit the solo instrument. Got that, yeah? I could repeat it again, because I seem to be repeating this. I don't know.
It's over there.
All right, this is
up at the show. Actually, you know what? We
it is not useful.
podcastbuffet.ca.
All right, okay, not useful. Here's our closing.
And now we have an interesting call from a parent who's been in the closet for the last 3 days.
Oh, you see now I'm hearing all kinds of stuff, right? Solo.
And now we have an interesting call from a parent who's been in the...
Okay, that's perfect. And then...
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, yeah.
Give me a call at 1-800...
Okay, so that's our closing. You see this whole front part here is not relevant to what we're doing. I'll get rid of it. And for now, that's enough for the closing. I'm looking for the opening.
Don't worry so much about the sound of your voice, because the way you hear it is not the way everybody else hears it. So when people hear your voice, you sound exactly the way you sound.
Okay, that's our applause. The applause side is on. Oh, see, now I don't want my own voice in there, so... The applause side is on. Oh, that's going to be a tight one. So I'll zoom in. And here's my voice. Applause side is on. Alright, so delete that. Now how does it start? Okay, now you see what I should have done is not only delete me, but everything before it. Now that should be a nice audience. There, play. Alright, so I'll take that out. This, you can tell, right? Unless you were recording chipmunks sleeping, you can tell there's nothing relevant there, right?
Can you download sound effects like that?
You can download, you can buy.
Well, some software comes with it. Like GarageBand actually has some sound effects with it.
Yeah.
We'll sell a copy of this sound effect to you for, well, we'll have to set the licensing fee. There's the Internet Archive. There's...
If you Google for SFX, which is the industry shorthand for sound effects, you're going to find tons.
Except you'll also get a lot of licensed stuff.
Yeah,
so we'll put up some links. We've been building that list of technical links. We'll add Free Sound Project and Internet Archive and some of the other ones. And some of the sound effects that are free are terrible, and some of them are amazing, like the audio quality in some of them. I used the sound of a splash. Some kids playing in the water and some splashing sounds.
Hi there.
Really high quality.
There's my host. So here's a case where that split new would be nice. I don't remember who asked for that. So I've got my applause here. Okay.
Hi there, welcome to Hiding in...
All right, so now my track is called SFX, but there's really two distinct things here. So if I highlight this and I do a split new, there we go. I can now rename this one to host. And down here is our sound effects. And I'll rename that just so I know. It's called Whoop.
Highly technical term.
I know, it's really bad. So now we found the piece of audio that I needed to get this next part started. This is our show.
And in retrospect, I should have been very quiet. I should have been, hi there, welcome.
No, that was my job.
So I've got this, and now do we want the woo as part of the opening? Or,
yeah, we should come right into the music, into the woo, and into the host.
All right, so let's do that. So the first...
We like Go on CBC. We've been hooting and hollering before you jump in.
There we go. So now I'm going to solo the three things I'm working on, so that they're the only things I hear. So we've got the music here, our woo, and our host. And make sure nothing else is blue, so that's all I hear. So if I just play it straight like this, what's it going to say?
Hi there, welcome to Hiding in the Closet. This is where we hide from...
This is not bad. It's starting to sound like a show now, right?
Yeah.
We can tighten that up, though. And you're going to see a big difference here. Music comes out, audience comes in. Now, remember we did this thing called ducking. Actually, we won't do the ducking with the audience. But what we'll do is we'll bring her over on top so she starts talking while the audience is still applauding. And the audience will start applauding as the music is fading out. So the three things sounded good, but now we tighten them up.
Now you swear it was a live show, right?
It's going to be the intro.
Hi there, welcome to Hiding in the Closet. This is where we hide from our children when...
That's not three separate things anymore, right? This happened live on the stage, right here. So there's your sound scene. In fact, I'm going to move Jennifer a bit over this way. Because people tend to keep talking, or applauding when people talk. Great. So now let's see where our intro ends.
Hi there, welcome to Hiding in the Closet. This is where we hide from our children when we want 2 minutes of peace. We have some fantastic guests this afternoon, and we've all...
Okay, let's
talk about auto ducking. This is a great example right here, where she stopped talking, and in auto ducking, the music would have come back up again.
So we'd have a blip right here.
And so how much? That's like 3 seconds. So in 3 seconds, auto ducking would have brought the music back up and then back down again.
But what we could do is we could help Jennifer at this. I'm picking on her because it's her voice. But so she talks.
Children when we want 2 minutes of peace.
But
we
you know, actually
have
that
some
works.
fantastic.
Hold on, you know why it works is because the music is like a post.
Right.
If you listen to the music did something different right as she ended and stopped just before she came in again. So actually that would be quite a fluke.
But well, let's try it a different way. Let's say that she was reading off a script like caffeinated game show host people tend to do. And we'll take that here. We'll take that blip out.
Too tight.
Let's see.
Hi there, welcome to Hiding in the Closet. This is where we hide from our children when we want 2 minutes of peace. We have some fantastic guests this afternoon, and we've all been here hiding in the closet for the last half hour playing hide and seek with our kids, and they haven't found us yet. So our first guest,
All right, so
that might be a good spot to bring the music down where she does that shh, so you can hear that.
found us yet.
now what we could do is we could get picky about it and we could have the audience applaud again, right? If we want to.
Or you could even get more interesting and go, ooh.
Oh, that's good. All right.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, I bump up this a little bit too because I thought it was just the hardest.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Right now I'm sequencing, and then I'm gonna fix the host audio. I'm doing it on purpose to not levelate or do anything to the host audio until after.
Actually, this is really interesting because what Bob is doing here is very different from the way we usually do our show edits. I think you and I are the same in this respect. Is we'll listen to all the shows, and we'll mute, and we'll solo, and all that stuff, and we'll block everything into the right places. And then we'll go back, and then we'll play with the gains, and we'll play with the effects and the fade-outs and all that other stuff at the very end, once we've got the whole sequence worked out.
My name is Chris.
Oh, let's do. Okay, so we want. Actually, I will unsolo this. I don't hear it. I don't hear it. I want the ooh. And that was on.
Sound effects too.
That looks really low. Let's see.
Okay, hold on, let me go over here in the middle.
Okay, that's shock. Laughing. Okay. We don't have an ooh, right?
Right. Well, that's good. That being disappointed, whatever. You know.
Okay, that we gotta keep.
Okay. So now I'm all ridiculous. I'm laughing like, oh my god, this person is trying to be on this planet. Why are we here? Kind of
All right, I'm going to show you something here. This part I've highlighted, I don't need. It's just me coaching you guys, right? But I don't want to delete it. If I delete it, I'm going to have the two sound effects back to back, and that, just for me visually, it's going to be harder to identify the different parts. So if I click on this, if I delete, they'll squish them together. If I click on this button here, it'll just erase what's there. So it's still one clip, but it's just easier for me mentally. And then later on, when I want to slide them around, I can go and split it up and do something. So right now, I'm just taking out the garbage, really.
We'll be able to put these up on the...
Talking.
think of making these.
Alright, that'll be an interesting one. Let's do this. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to blank out what's there because I know I don't need it. And then I'm going to zoom in. Now, I might not want that burp when the maple leaves are mentioned. I just want the ooh. Alright, so it should be around there. Let's zoom in again. Okay, so this might be super cool, but I'll get up to that, and now I'll zoom back out. Love the enthusiasm. Alright, so, and then it ends here.
Okay. So now, how many questions do you have there?
Alright, so that's good. So I'll take out the rest, and I would normally fade it out. So we've got that. Which is the one we want to use?
I don't think we actually did ooh.
I don't think so, A completely out of place laughter would be awesome. There we go. So let's do that. I'm going to split this here. And then I'm going to split it again over here. Now actually what I can do is I can just if it was recorded at the same level as my other sound effect here, I could actually copy that and paste it on.
And it should have been, because it was the same recording.
I don't think it was. Anyway, let's see.
I don't think the enthusiasm was there.
All right, I'm going to, just like you do in word processing, right? I'm going to cut, go up, so go up. Click here, and paste. So now, I'll turn this guy off. And I'll go back to my 3 solo tracks.
What you might want to do, Bob, is because there's a lot of scrolling between tracks, and it's kind of hard to track. You might want to make it a little bit smaller so that you can see all of these.
Yeah, they won't all fit though. Well,
or just the main ones you're working in, just because moving between them, it's from over here.
Okay. So now what I have to place is that reaction to the host thing, right? So, there we go. Where does she say it?
Seek with our kids, and they haven't found us yet. So our first guest.
Okay, so that's actually the show there. I'm going to split that up. So you can change the timing. You can actually, we've created a studio audience now. And we've done this. So I'm going to bring you over here.
But now, right on top of the no, they want to follow the shit.
Yeah. Now, what I know though is I've got this 3-minute song that I'm not going to need. So for me, what I do at this point is I just get rid of it. I'll keep a bit more than I actually need, but it just makes it easier for me. So we got the okay. So let's hear how that sounds. Actually, it's going to end right here. That's where the music ends, and let's just fade that out. And that's where, because we can't make the band stop playing because it's a recording. So now let's hear our intro.
Hi there, welcome to Hiding in the Closet. This is where we hide from our children when we want 2 minutes of peace. We have some fantastic guests this afternoon, and we've all been here hiding in the closet for the last half hour playing hide and seek with our kids, and they haven't found us yet.
It's like Zoo Radio.
Okay, so it's that level of artificialness I wanted. Right? So there we are. So now, what I like doing is I like sequencing the tracks. I'm just laying out on the screen in the order in which I'm using them. So the top one, I'm not going to touch again because it's the beginning of the show. It's the first thing to come on, and then I like sequencing them in the order in which I would place them in the show. So that way, fake out I'm not going to use again. I might use it for an ending, but I'll have another track now. I'll bring in the audio again for that. And so as the show progresses, I'm moving down and to the right, down and to the right, down and to the right. So now,
waterfall editing for you project manager types.
Yes. So that's where the show ended, and I'll come here, and now she starts talking, right?
So let me ask you a question. You would put the intro music or the extra music on a separate track, even though it's the same music. You would just gain it in.
Just out of habit. It's easier to follow, and because when I'll be at the end of the show, I'll be down here to the right. So if I try to line it up, or if I make the mistake of selecting the whole track, I'll move my intro music over. I didn't mean to. So it just lets me focus in on that one.
Okay.
Are we done, Jay? Is that what you're doing?
Podcamp
Toronto.
Jay Moon, everybody.
I haven't seen you in a while. Feeling invisible.
You want to hear our intro, Jay?
Yes.
Listen to this. Listen to this wonderful work we're doing here.
No, I do.
Hi there, welcome to Hiding in the Closet. This is where we hide from our children when we want 2 minutes of peace. We have some fantastic guests this afternoon, and we've all been here hiding in the closet for the last half hour playing hide and seek with our kids, and they haven't found us yet.
Okay, so now the so if you look at that.
Did you guys make that in here today?
Yeah. 30 seconds. 30 seconds, your audience knows.
Real-time production.
So 30 seconds, your audience knows everything about your show, what you're going to talk about. They've heard your music, they've heard whatever. You could have slipped in a brought to you by Tim Hortons in there if you were making money at this. 30 seconds. If they're into what you're doing, they'll give you more. And if they're not, they know.
Frankly, you could have also, if you really wanted to save time, you could have shortened the 5 seconds of music at the very beginning.
Yeah, I like the drum beat, right? So So now we're going to edit the actual show. So show starts here, right?
So our first guest is...
Actually, you know what? What's going to make this really funny is I went around the hallway asking people what is their answer there.
Okay, so
Today we asked some parents, what is their best part of hiding from their children?
perfect. So we'll take that.
Today we asked some parents, what is their best part of hiding from their children? Here's what they had to say.
All right, so here's what they had to say. Seems to need to be moved over a bit. That's just because I pickies. All right, so we have our first. There's our group.
See what Bob did? He moved the track that's going to be next to the sequence, moved it up.
Right. Yes, thank you.
So now when you're dealing with the waterfall, you've got that nice flow going down to the right.
So I hit
this is where we diverge, by the way, but that's a whole other story.
The fact is that there's multiple ways to do it, right? And they're all valid.
I didn't say it was right or
They're
wrong.
all good. Don't invalidate me, Mark.
I didn't know that about you.
Okay.
We've worked on the show for 2 years.
I'm a Quebecer. I do things differently. This is a distinct editing session. All right.
It's their best part.
So Bob,
what's that?
How do you move the tracks up and down?
Oh, you go over here and you click where the name is, and you hold down, and you can just shift up and down. So now I want to make that first comment come in there. Yeah, Rob.
Just a tip when you're dragging things up and down. If you've got the track squeezed down and you can't see the level controls and the mutes and things like that, if you click on the gray area, you can do some really weird things to your audio by changing the pan and the volume and stuff like that. So just be careful of that.
Yeah, Audacity has some quirks, right? So one of the quirks is, if it's squeezed down like this, you can't really move it without hurting yourself. So just bring it down and make it bigger. And give yourself a place where you can click.
Voice of experience.
Yeah, that's a great tip. It's usually followed by, where'd it go?
That's why
Today we asked some parents, what is their best...
It's been a while since we've saved.
There's two things that you're going to want to take advantage of when you're doing your editing. One of them is save, and save off, and the other one is undo.
Yeah.
So in that particular case, if you drag your audio and suddenly everything was on the left side of your ear, then just undo.
But does the undo, once you save it, you lose the undo?
Well, we just saved, let's see.
Because I think I've applied compression to a whole bunch of things. I saved it, and then I couldn't undo the compression.
Did you close the session in between?
No, I just saved it.
Just saved it?
Get Cubase.
I know that if you do an effect to multiple tracks and you undo it, it'll only undo the last track.
Okay, and I think some of the effects must be constructed. Yeah.
Today we asked some parents, what is their best part of hiding from their children? Here's what they had to say.
My name is Chris. My favorite.
That's a bit aggressive.
You just say my favorite part of Podcamp Toronto, which we might want to cut out. I just want to cut it where he says my name is Chris and just go right to is what it is that his favorite part is.
Oh, okay. Sure. So I'll zoom in again. Put my little cursor tool here.
See, the nice thing about editing. The nice thing about editing.
My name is Chris. My favorite part is talking to you right now and playing out with my radio voice.
Oh, no, you're fine. He doesn't say Podcamp Toronto.
So do I leave it?
Yeah, leave it.
All right. I'll just tighten it up a bit.
Editing is amazingly rewarding when you hear the end result. Like I never expected that intro was going to
See,
sound
that's
that
not
good.
what I wanted to do there. I shouldn't have this. So
Wow.
I do. All right. So with that. And you didn't know how many clips there was, so you didn't introduce them one by one. So I will stack these all together.
Yeah, we'll sequence them. There's a few more that I got with my other recorder too.
Well, we'll stick with 3.
Okay.
And then we'll do the phone call.
I think that third one has to be edited because I think she mentions Podcamp Toronto.
Oh,
yeah, like the third one. So
right here.
Yeah.
My name's Elizabeth O'Grady, and my favorite part of Podcamp Toronto. My name's Elizabeth O'Grady, and my favorite part of Podcamp Toronto is the Zero to Podcast session.
Which may not necessarily apply here.
You know, I'm sorry, Elizabeth.
I'll live.
There's an.
I'll be traumatized.
But let's grab another clip that I did
Well,
with the one.
how about from there? We'll just go from the to the phone call.
Oh, you want to do
Right there. Just because we have 10 minutes left in this part, right?
Okay.
Where is it? So Brogan, we don't need. Whatever, we don't need.
We might finish up the edit after this.
Yeah, yeah,
We cleared it for the buffet, just so you can hear how everything fits together.
Okay, so we'll take the call.
We need the host.
And the host is here. And then the country bunny. And then don't need that sound effect. Take that out. Take that out. Alright, so I'm going to increase all these tracks because I want to just use one as I want.
So when Bob does editing, by the way, he does talk like this to himself.
I make sound effects with my mouse that can be Star Wars.
So basically what Bob has done here is he's selected the tracks he's going to work with. He's sequenced them in that waterfall formation down to the right and getting ready to place everything where it belongs.
So this is the intro to the call.
Were all the files that you put in there stereo files?
Yes, but they didn't have to be. It could have been just mono files, and then there would be just one of these lines as opposed to two. So that should go straight here.
Everybody that I know and meeting new people.
And now we have.
Okay, so that's a bit aggressive, right? So should we wait a second before talking?
Everybody that I know and meeting new people.
And now we have an interesting call from a parent who's been in the closet for the last 3 days. Let's see what he has to say.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll split that to make room for the call.
So you're a natural. And Bob hires himself out doing production work. So.
Did I lose the call? You see what I did? I clicked here, and I actually ended up zooming in on this. There's the call.
Did you ever see what he did? On the track, you can actually zoom in.
Just like I use these buttons here to zoom in the time horizontally, you can zoom in on volume here. And I clicked on it to the point where I couldn't see anything.
So now what Bob's doing is he's zooming out so he can see.
So what I'm doing now, it doesn't affect the audio at all. It's just simply a zoom on the view of the audio.
Bless you.
Alright, so there's the call. Cubby Bunny should be in the call here. Okay. And then the end of the show is here. I will go get the theme song. Yeah.
Can you copy the one you already played or cut?
Well, the thing is, it fades out. So now I want to do the opposite. I want the end of the tune, not the beginning of the tune. So I'll go get it again. And just slap it down here. So this is the last part here, where our host is speaking there. So what I'll do, just one.
Bob, bring the mic in a little closer.
Maybe she'll buy
Alright, let's just take this out. And I'm being really quiet because I'm just editing and muttering to myself, as you will do when you edit audio. Alright, so basically the same thing I did. I'm not even going to measure it to be sure. Take that out. Sure. Ow.
Wait till I do it.
So this part, I don't know about you guys, but for me to do it on a trackpad is just asking for trouble. I love using a mouse because you need something right click, left click. To do it on a trackpad is just an exercise in frustration. So there's the end of our host speaking up here somewhere. So after the host speaks, usually there's a couple of seconds of music. We got that. I'm going to do the inverse of what I did at the beginning. I'm going to mark the edit here, the ducking point there envelope tool. shrink this down so that the music comes up as the host is saying good night and thank you for coming. Leave me $10, please. And then we have a fade in there. So I'll do a fade in. So let's listen to that and see how that sounds. And before you publish, you listen to your whole show.
Hi there, welcome to Hiding in the Closet. This is where we hide from our children when we want 2 minutes of peace. We have some fantastic guests this afternoon, and we've all been here hiding in the closet for the last half hour playing hide and seek with our kids, and they haven't found us yet.
So you can follow it, right? Going down to the right. There we go. Intro.
Today we asked some parents, what is their best part of hiding from their children? Here's what they had to say.
Right here.
My name is Chris, and my favorite part is talking to you right now and playing out with my radio voice, having some fun. Hi, I'm Bill Lees, and my favorite part is meeting with everybody that I know and meeting new people.
And now we have an interesting call from a parent who's been in the closet for the last 3 days. Let's see what he has to say.
Oh, see, I want to tighten that up.
I'm hiding in the closet right now. The kids are looking for me. There's like 5 of them. They've like organized. This closet is really good. It's like this walk-in closet. I found some really old clothes here. Polyester's itching. I don't know what to do. Oh,
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here, and I can't wait for you to join us next week where we find out about what people have done decorating in their closet. We'll see you next week, and you can...
Let's see if we can fix that. So that's a big one to fix.
So while you're doing that, actually, this is a little bit tighter than it needed to be, but we're obviously running on time. But the other thing that's really interesting is what I thought was very cool was where the host came in the first time, which is above those streets. And you can hear the breath. Don't underestimate the value of a breath. A breath is a really good, transition maker.
Give me a call
if you're looking for a way to break something up, pace it for your listener. Go from one section to another. Don't be afraid to have a 1 or 2 second pause and then have that. Now we're going to talk about such and such. So I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, Bob, but I thought that was perfect when the music faded out and we heard Jen's breath.
Well, I'd like to say it was intentional, but I'm not that clever. So,
It's better than a
now
it's true, yes, it is better than that.
But if you listen closely, the word that I was using as my filler word was "and,"
which is also used.
But you know what? Don't get too caught up on that. Eh? People say, I'm going to take every out.
Don't.
First of all, it's going to take forever, and you're never going to get your message across.
But the thing is just to become aware of it, so you can start to work on that as you create the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to lean. The more experience you get, the less crutches you'll have, right? So now let's hear that ending. What else do you want to type?
You don't want to sometimes over-edit it so much that you almost sound sterile.
Exactly. Well, nobody talks without, very few people in the word talk without using ums and ands and buts and so's. What you want to do is you want to leave it sounding natural. In fact, a lot of my interviews I don't do. I've given up. I think very early on I did this where I removed ums and ands. And I've gotten to the point where I don't care at all. If I have a guest who's terrible at it, who says all the time, I'll pick off every 3rd or 4th one. Or what I'll do is I'll be brutal at the beginning. I'll take off, let's say they use 8 ums a minute. I'll take out maybe 6 of the ums in the first minute, and then 3 of the ums in the second minute, and then I'll leave the rest in. Because what you want to do is sell your guest to your listener at the very beginning, and if they come out storming them with ums, you're going to lose them. But if you ease them into the ums, you can have a million ums after that, and people won't notice as much because they're engaged in the content.
Fun. Hi, I'm Bill Lees, and my favorite part is meeting with everybody that I know and meeting new people.
And now we have an interesting call from a parent who's been in the closet for the last 3 days. Let's see what he has to say.
I'm hiding in the closet right now. The kids are looking for me. There's like 5 of them. They've like organized. This closet is really good. It's like this walk-in closet. I found some really old clothes here. Polyester's itching. I don't know what to do. Oh,
joining us today. We really appreciate you being here, and I can't wait for you to join us next week where we find out about what people have done decorating in their closet. Give me a call at 1-800-523-1111. Talk to you soon.
There we go, the best 1 minute, 30-second podcast it took 4 hours to make.
And actually, if you have a 1 minute and 45-second podcast that gives a lot of really good information on a regular basis, you will have a large audience. Because everybody can give up a minute and 45, but not everybody's going to give up an hour.
What if you have hissing or some sort of distortion?
Well, the question is, what if you have hissing or distortion? Distortion is a tough one because you can do your best to mask it, kind of like we did before with the P-Pops, right? We made it so that sound was just at least not louder than what was going on around it. So that helps mask some distortion. Hissing is a problem because it's a certain frequency. Hissing, by definition, is a high-pitched sound. It could be tape hiss, or it could be just on a phone line, or just that sound, or that frequency range of that hiss happens to be a frequency range where our voices also work. So if you take out that frequency, if you do like equalization and you actually take that out, the voice will sound very much dead, like somebody's talking to a sock. It'll have no presence. It'll have no air. Because when I talk, or when you talk, when everybody talks, there's that's a hiss, but it's part of it.
Keep talking.
It's wonderful. So now to take out, anyways. So the whole thing is that you can minimize it with EQ and noise removal and things like that, but you're going to end up affecting the source sound. So I mean, ideally, the best thing you want to do is not have the hiss in the first place. Do your best to not have that. And if you do have it, you're better off leaving some hiss in it and having it sound better than taking all the hiss out and having it sound very mechanical.
There are some noise filters, things like Sound Soap and such that you can buy that will help you identify the hiss sound and remove it. The trick to using software packages like that is if you know you have the hiss, leave about 5 or 10 seconds of unspoken audio in your show or in your source recording, so that Sound Soap can identify where that problem is and it'll help you remove it. No matter what, though, you're going to end up affecting the source audio. Just with a tool like that, it makes it that much easier.
The last step in Audacity when we finish the edit is to create the MP3 file. Right now it sounds the way we want in the software. Now we want to share it with the world. Okay, just file, export. What do you want to call it? Call it the show.
Closet.
Call it the Closet Geek Show.
Is Brent here?
I haven't seen it. And we're saving it as an MP3 file. And then now it's going to go and it's going to put all these bits together. It's not going to take long. It's a minute. But if they have a half-hour show, it can take about 2-3 minutes to do. And now if I go look at my directory, I have a show. And that ends up being a 1.5 meg MP3 file. And that's my show.
It looks like an Audacity.
Oh yeah, good idea. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
Sage says show what it looks like in Audacity, and that's a great idea. So now remember we had all those different lines showing all the different bits we put together. So I'll take my show and I'll put it here. Guess what it's going to look like? There's my whole show. And we can watch it play.
Look at it in Final Form, by the way.
Now, at this point, personally, my levels are all good because that's the way I do it. I try to make sure my levels are good when I do my editing and my layout. I will not touch it after I create my MP3. Some people, what they'll do is they'll take this file now and run it through the levelator or through a compressor, or they'll bring it back into Audacity and they'll say, you know what, I want it to sound nice and smooth and super FM sound. So they're going to come here and they do compressor, and it's I'm just going to, don't worry about the settings, I'll just show you later.
A little radical move here.
And what compression does is it does like a levelating. It brings the soft parts up, the high parts down. You see how that changed? It'll actually sound very different. I don't know if we can tell on the big speaker.
Guys, you can hear
it doing this now?
Hi there, welcome to Hiding in the Closet. This is where we hide from our children when we want 2 minutes of peace.
You hear how that sounded? It still sounded all right. But it had that pumping thing going on at the beginning, and it sounded squash.
But hold on, put earbuds on and listen to that. And see how you enjoy it.
You won't like it at all. If we go back, see, you hear the presence it has? Now it's like it's back to what, right? It has an openness to it, an airiness to it, and if you squash the living hell out of it.
Well, I think an even better part to listen to would be if you listen to where these, right over here too.
Where's that?
Listen to this section here where she's speaking
Oh,
and
yeah,
you go
okay.
into those clips.
So let's listen to that. So when the music comes out, we go into the clips.
Today we asked some parents, what is their best part of...
Okay, so there's a nice transition there, right? You're getting the mental cue that the music is fading away. Your brain knows the introduction is over. Now we're getting to the serious stuff. And if you take that cue away by compressing it, you end up with a very different feel. Where is it? It's back. There we go. Did you notice you can't hear laughter as well?
Today we asked some parents, what is their best part of hiding from their children?
Do you get the feeling she's yelling a bit more? You know, I'm picky. I'm really picky on this stuff, but I get the feeling it's a much more aggressive sound, and it's that FM sound that I can't stand. You give people
you can at least
air.
visually see if you flip between those, you can actually see.
Like that's uncompressed, and that's compressed.
So here, you're living in a very narrow dynamic range, and then if you open it up again, you can see that there's a lot more air here. There's a lot more space.
Yeah, it squished it all down. So, should notice.
So we've gone now 8 minutes over time.
So,
for our piece.
Next, Rob, you want to do the next part, or we take a break? Obviously.
Take a break.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think so.